Welcome to The Point of View.
Welcome to Face to Face on Channel 1 Television.
And hello, welcome to What the Papers Are Saying.
This be football made in Ghana. It be the only pidgin show where it day on your screen, Channel 1 TV.
Well, thank you so much.
Some people are late. You know, they have to catch up. City TV is now Channel 1 TV. You understand?
This is Channel 1 TV, telling your story, empowering change.
Complete this rhyme. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
How are you working? How?
Who's that?
Welcome to The Point of View.
Welcome to Face to Face on Channel 1 Television.
And hello, welcome to What the Papers Are Saying.
This be football made in Ghana. It be the only pidgin show where it day on your screen, Channel 1 TV.
Well, thank you so much.
Some people are late. You know, they have to catch up. City TV is now Channel 1 TV. You understand?
This is Channel 1 TV, telling your story, empowering change.
You're welcome. This is your election bureau. Welcome to the big issue. My name is Selorm Adonoo. This is your platform for incisive analysis and riveting conversation. The show is live and interactive, and you can join us as always with your WhatsApp messages on 0549 986 996 or 020 444 7033. This week, as always, or as usual, has been quite interesting. Two key issues we want to look at this morning. The matter of the Speaker of Parliament and the Supreme Court of the Judiciary is still raging. It took an interesting turn this week. The Speaker had applied to the Supreme Court to vacate its decision staying the execution of the Speaker's notice or declaration of seats vacant on the 17th October. or 18th October, I should say, because the Speaker's decision was on the 17th October. The Supreme Court dismissed that application and ordered the parties to file their processes and hopefully sit on the matter and rule on it by 11th of November. The Supreme Court says that we are almost in a constitutional crisis. Parliament is not sitting. The Chief Justice says he doesn't know what's going on, and so the parties must work together quickly to ensure that the country returns to normalcy. We'll look at the decision of the Supreme Court in respect of dismissing the application by the Speaker and what that means for us, some of the points raised in there and what that means for our democracy. Also, the Afrobarometer report has been saying quite a number of things. We'll take time to look at some of them, the trust of the public in institutions, the direction of the country, amongst other things. We'll look at all of that today, and that will be at the second part of the show. So this is what we have for you this morning. My name is Selorm Adonoo. Once again, I will take a short break. I will return, introduce my guests, provide some updates, and then we'll hit the ground running. Don't go away.
Complete this rhyme. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
How are you working how?
Who's that?
Welcome to The Point of View.
Welcome to Face to Face on Channel 1 Television.
And hello, welcome to What the Papers Are Saying.
This be football made in Ghana. It be the only pidgin show where it day on your screen. Channel 1 TV.
Thank you so much.
Some people are late. They have to catch up. City TV is now Channel 1 TV. You understand?
This is Channel 1 TV, telling your story, empowering change.
Complete this rhyme. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
How are you working how?
Who's that?
You're welcome back. This is the big issue, two key issues we are looking at this morning. We're looking at the decision of the Supreme Court in the matter of the vacation of seats in Parliament and what that means for us as a people, what that means for our democracy. I'll also take some time and look at the Afrobarometer report and what it says moving forward in respect of our country and what that also means for the election that is upon us in a few days' time. My guests for this morning, but before I introduce them, let me provide you some updates. Now, the Supreme Court has rejected an application by the Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin to overturn an earlier ruling that barred him from declaring 4 seats vacant. This decision adds a new layer to the legal debate on the Speaker's authority versus the judiciary's influence over parliamentary procedures and pronouncements. The case has been adjourned until November 11, 2024 for further hearings and a possible determination. Channel 1 News' Jude Duncan was at the Supreme Court and he filed this report. All right, so we'll dig up that and share with you in a while. The Speaker of Parliament also summoned the House to reconvene on Thursday, November 7, 2024 at 10 a.m. The session will take place at the Grand Arena of the Accra International Conference Center, where lawmakers will return to critical discussions that have been stalled for several weeks. So the decision to reconvene follows a protracted impasse triggered by a ruling from the Speaker of Parliament regarding quote-unquote vacant seats in Parliament. Portions of the statement read, pursuant to Article 112, Clause 13 and Orders 5 and 53 of the Standing Orders of the Parliament of Ghana, I, the Right Honourable Alban Kingsford Sumana Bagbin, Speaker of Parliament, hereby summon Parliament to sit on the 7th of November 2024 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon at the Grand Arena of the Accra International Conference Center. So that is what it is. Meanwhile, following a report by Channel 1 News' Ni Ayikwe Okain, in this report, he's been providing some highlights of circumstances surrounding the adjournment of the House and its eventual summoning by the Speaker.
The Supreme Court of Ghana has ruled against Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin's attempts to reverse a decision blocking him from declaring 4 seats vacant. Speaker Bagbin's application also sought to nullify a writ from the Majority Leader Alexander Penyo-Markin, which requested that the judiciary intervene to prevent further declarations on the contested seats.
Not even the President and Vice President are exempt from obeying the orders of the Supreme Court when they are made to give effect to its duty to prevent a violation of the Constitution. Because of the irreparable harm to the constituencies made up of hundreds of thousands of Ghanaians who would have lost their MPs without the option of a by-election, and the irreparable harm to the MPs who would have lost their seats in Parliament in these last few weeks to the 7th December elections, if the meaning put on Article 97(1)(g) by the Speaker was enforced without a clear determination of the disputes around it, compliance would also have enabled this court to dispose of this case by this week, including the question of whether the suit is competent in form or the jurisdiction of this court has been properly invoked. It is important, and the question of whether the jurisdiction has been properly invoked is different from whether the jurisdiction exists. It's a different legal question. It is important to place on record that both the plaintiff and the Attorney General have complied with these orders, and this court is able to complete hearing of this suit if the Speaker chooses to file no processes. For the above reasons, the application is refused.
Earlier, the Supreme Court had dismissed an objection from the Speaker's counsel challenging Justice Ernest Jewu's presence on the bench, labeling the objection as misconceived.
To the preliminary objections raised to paragraphs 21 and 49 of applicant's affidavit will be addressed in the final ruling on this application. On the objection to a panel member being a former member of a political party, this court must take judicial notice of the fact that within the ranks of the Superior Court is a former member of Parliament for the National Democratic Congress, a former General Secretary of the People's National Convention. It should be well understood that when Parliament approves a qualified citizen to be a justice of the superior courts, pursuant to Article 1284, the representatives of this country have appreciated the ability of that qualified person to contribute to justice delivery in the country. Second, the subject matter of this suit before this court is a constitutional dispute and not a matter involving political parties. The objection is therefore misconceived.
Following extended arguments, the Supreme Court adjourned the case to 11th November 2024, when it will continue hearing and potentially issue a judgment on the substantive matter. This adjournment follows the Attorney General's assertion that Speaker Gbagben's continued legal representation by Thaddeus Sori lacked prior approval from the Public Procurement Authority, deeming it unlawful. Attorney General Godfrey Dame clarified that he refrained from initially contesting the Speaker's Council's eligibility as a mark of respect for Parliament's leadership.
I mean, as I said, I've always tolerated the Speaker of Parliament and his representation, even though I know it's not lawful. And of course, it is not. You see, and the point must be made. It is not an attempt to prevent the Speaker from having representation. If the Speaker wants to have a lawyer, the Speaker must procure the lawyer lawfully. And then, as I said, the Attorney General, even when he's seeking the service of a lawyer to represent the government in cases outside the country, in foreign court, goes through PPR approval all the time. Even the Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice, Edi Yeboah, who was, with all respect, using the services of Thaddeus Sori, had to go to PPR approval. And I know for a fact that he has not received any PPR approval. And so he's in flagrant violation of the provisions of the law.
Article 112, Clause 3 of the 1992 Constitution provides that notwithstanding any other provision in this article, 15% of members of Parliament may request a meeting of Parliament, and the Speaker shall, within 7 days after the receipt of the request, summon Parliament. Similarly, Order 53 of the Standing Orders of Parliament reinforces this constitutional provision by stating that despite any other provision, 15% of members of Parliament may request a meeting of Parliament, and the Speaker shall, within 7 days after the receipt of the request, summon Parliament. Parliament shall convene within 7 days after the issuance of the notice of summon. Article 112 is designed to be invoked in normal times when Parliament is on recess and a need arises in the national interest for Parliament to address. The phrase "and the Speaker shall, within 7 days after the receipt of the request, summon Parliament" is meant to prescribe the upper limit within which the discretion of the Speaker in taking the decision to summon Parliament can be exercised. The provision has in recent times been invoked by the NPP caucus of Parliament. The House adjourned on Wednesday, March 20, 2024, but the majority petitioned the Speaker on May 3 to recall Parliament within 7 days. The Speaker, on May 10, 2024, within the 7-day time frame, issued a notice summoning Parliament on 17 May 2024. A motion on increased financing and the acceptance of the 34th report of the Appointments Committee were among the important government business issues that the majority caucus wanted to be addressed. A loan facility for an amount of $150 million to finance the ongoing Greater Accra Resilient and Integrated Development Garrett project, and also a request for tax exemption for selected beneficiaries under the 1D1F program were also part of the agenda. On July 31, 2024, the Majority Leader Alexander Penyamaken petitioned the Speaker again to reassemble Parliament. This was after the Majority Caucus's discontent with the Speaker's decision to indefinitely adjourn the session on Tuesday, July 30, 2024. Businesses for the recall included a motion on the financing agreement between the Government of Ghana and the International Development Association, request for tax exemptions for designated beneficiaries under the One District, One Factory program, the Ghana Financial Stability Fund, and certain bills. On August 7, exactly within the 7-day time frame, the Speaker summoned Parliament for an emergency session on Tuesday, September 3, 2024, almost a month after the issuance of notice. The Speaker in a communication raised concerns that the literal understanding of Article 112 Clause 3 and Order 53 without consideration for the context and purpose behind these provisions could lead to an absurd situation where Parliament is kept in perpetual meetings. He dreaded instances where the constitutional provision could be weaponized by factions within Parliament to serve partisan interest rather than the national interest. Speaker says Parliament could be drawn into a state of perpetual sitting at unnecessary cost to the nation and effectively preventing MPs from attending to their constituencies and other vital responsibilities, especially in an election year when advocacy of MPs is crucial. Following the declaration of 4 seats vacant by Speaker Alban Bagbin, the House was adjourned indefinitely on October 22, 2024 due to a deadlock between both sides of the House who were claiming the majority status. In a letter addressed to Speaker Bagbin by the second Deputy Majority Whip, Alex Tete Jonobua, on October 23, 2024, a day after the adjournment of the House, the NPP caucus triggered a recall. The Speaker, per constitutional dictates, is expected to issue a notice today, October 30, providing a date for the summoning of the House. But the Speaker, in an earlier communication, indicated that while the Constitution provides that the Speaker shall, within 7 days after the receipt of the request, summon Parliament, it is the standing orders which provides that Parliament shall convene within 7 days after the issuance of the notice of summon. The same standing orders empower the Speaker to interpret the standing orders in accordance with the Constitution. In this instance, Alban Bagbin contends that the Constitution does not prescribe the date for the meeting of the House after the issuance of the notice of summon. The Member of Parliament for Bia East, Richard Echampong, and Asante Achim North MP Andy Apiakubi believe that the underlying factor for the adjournment, if not resolved, would render the recall meaningless.
No, I don't speak for the Speaker. You can get 82, 83 members of Parliament to sign a petition to recall Parliament. What if that same day the Speaker also decides to adjourn the House Synod again? What would you do? We've gotten to a point that we need to respect each other. We need to cross bridges and then talk to each other so that we can promote this kind of democracy, 30 years of our democracy. But if you want to stretch it so much, your hand will be broken. He's not taking advice. He's being so arrogant. I don't know what kind of majority leader you want to be.
Sometimes when we get involved in this, excuse me for want of better word, childish antics, it doesn't inspire me at all. Let all of us bow our heads in shame and say that it is not too bad. Let us recover from this constitutional crisis and let us come out with a hybrid of opinion that will solve our problems. Indeed, we need to grow a class of statesmen more than a class of partisan politicians. And let the politicians also be warned that as much as we attack each other unnecessarily, we open ourselves to attacks from the public. And if you go out and listen to what people are saying about our politics and our parliament now, sometimes you are ashamed of even saying that I'm a parliamentarian. You see, how honorable have we become? We need to defend that title, being honorable.
All right, so you heard that report from Ni Ayukwe Okan. My guest this morning, Abraham Amaliba, Director of Conflict Resolution of the NDC, the Honorable Alex Aban, former Member of Parliament and a former Deputy Minister, Member of Parliament former for Gomoa West, Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa, Dr. John Osai, political scientist, CDD Ghana, also a research fellow there. And also we'll be joined by Justice Abdullah, who is a private legal practitioner. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I start off with you, Abraham Amaliba. The Speaker of the Parliament went to court to get the Supreme Court to overturn or to vacate its own orders in respect of the ruling it gave, which sought to stay execution of the Speaker's declaration of some 4 seats vacant. Many have described, or some have described that ruling as very solid. In fact, I spoke to Bobby Banson on the day of the decision. He said it was a solid ruling because he thought the Speaker addressed all the key issues in there. Whether he agrees with it or not is another issue. But what's your general view about that decision and what has been coming up?
So let me say good morning to your viewers and to my colleague here. Clearly, I knew the application of the Speaker will be dismissed as the Supreme Court did, but not because the application had no merit, but because you are virtually saying that Supreme Court, you were wrong. Supreme Court, you had no capacity. Supreme Court, you don't know what you were doing. And clearly, they will not sit by and say the application is right. So, for me, it was not because the Supreme Court did a good job. That is why I thought it would be what it is. I knew it would be what it is because the Supreme Court itself would be protective of its own ruling. Look, did the Supreme Court have capacity or jurisdiction to deal with this matter? Let's go to Article 2. And Article 2 simply talks about an enactment, or, if you want, an act of a person, which is inconsistent with the Constitution, isn't it? That's a summary of it. Now, the question to ask it, at the time Afenyo Markin filed his suit, what was the conduct of the Speaker?
I just wanted a general impression because so that we
no, I'm just yes.
Okay. We'll go to the meat
what was the conduct of the Speaker? Did the Speaker do anything? Because the writ preceded the Speaker's ruling. Now, subsequent processes filed, which culminated into the application for stay, were founded on that writ. So if the foundation is weak, how can the superstructure stay? But you say that you want us to just, I'll leave it there.
Yes. So we'll get to that. Honorable Aban, your general impressions about the decision. Your colleague Abraham wants to hit, well, he wants to go for the jugular right from the outset. But
I'm sure we'll get into the merit of it. For now, let me register my greetings to your viewers and Mr. Ambaliba. Yes, you see, there are many gray areas here, and for me, I see it as it was a further expansion of the frontiers of the practice of our democracy, right? Some of these things may not have been contemplated at all by the framers of the Constitution, but here are we faced with it. How are we going to deal with it, right? He pointed out that the writ by my very good friend Alexander Afenyo Markin had been filed even before the ruling of the Speaker. That's what he's saying. I think that if that is the case, it was preemptive to get the Speaker to know that, look, we know about this petition by the former minority leader, okay? And most probably, we know the mind of the Speaker on this. And we think that you should stay your hand. The Speaker himself also says that, yes, he knew about it, right? But he relied heavily on Article, I think, 117, okay, to say that no process from any court, including the Supreme Court, shall be served on the Speaker, the Clerk of Parliament, or MPs, whilst on their way to or from or at Parliament, right? I think that, for instance, I just want to deal with that briefly, then I'm sure when we get into the meeting, we'll deal with it. I think that this provision was given by the framers of the Constitution to prevent Parliament from unnecessary distractions as they continue to do their work, all in furtherance of the expansion or deepening of our democracy. So that, to me, was a shield to protect Parliament. But when Parliament's own acts or inactions are brought to bear, right, or is under question, should we still apply this? Was that a mischief that it wanted to, the framers of the Constitution wanted to cure? So it appears to me that what was given as a shield was immediately turned into a sword by the Speaker to pierce the very heart of democracy. But I'm sure as we go along, we'll deal with it. So for me, with the things that have happened, I think that the Supreme Court was right, even if its decision would have been preemptive. But the Speaker himself played into the game by going ahead with it. So out there, it appears as though the Speaker's decision to ask the 4 MPs even preceded the writ. Out there, that's how it appears.
For the writ was filed earlier, and
yes,
there were attempts to serve on the Monday before the Tuesday.
Yes, which the Speaker knew about. He decided to go ahead anyway.
And even on the day when the Speaker was making his pronouncement, the majority leader, we could see him showing him that he had filed something.
Yes.
So obviously filed before the ruling, or
exactly,
the Speaker's declaration.
So he decided to go ahead anyway and latched onto Article 117, okay, as his reason for rejecting the service on him. We know that it states black and white that no process from any court, right? But did the framers of the Constitution have within their contemplation things of this nature happening? They may not have had it. Probably if they did, they would not have given this kind of blanket insulation to the service of processes on Parliament. Because here we are dealing with the act or inaction of Parliament itself. And so the building blocks...
So that matter itself, is it not subject to interpretation then? The Supreme Court must interpret that, shouldn't it then? Maybe somebody with an application should see.
Exactly, but for now, nobody has tested that law. So I'm giving my opinion that it will lead to...
The Supreme Court has made pronouncement that you cannot interfere in the work of Parliament. For instance, Parliament is passing a law, you cannot stop it with any injunction. Let it pass before. So you go on.
Take your time.
We are people of laws.
It is different.
It is laws that regulate it. So if at a point in time, the law is not couched in a way that benefits you, that is your lot. That's your lot.
All right.
That is your lot. Can I land?
That is your lot. I understand where it's coming from. Oh, grey area. It has not provided for it. So if the Speaker is going on, what can we do? That is your lot. That is your lot.
You see,
Abraham, I'll come to you on that.
I wish you had had the benefit, for instance, of seeing the American Constitution.
Oh, we are
something you can read in some 2 hours, right? But they kept developing it as issues
until it is developed. We are guided by what is there now.
Let him land, then I'll come to you.
So you see, I'm saying that for me, what I think is that if the framers of the Constitution had within their contemplation, okay, permutations of facts as they are playing out now, they may not have given this kind of blanket. And if we can take some guidance from that immortal speech, if I should put it that way, of Justice Taylor in the Former's Attorney General case, where he says that in the interpretation of a constitution, we must see the constitution itself as a living document, capable of growth, such that you interpret it to suit modern trends and, more importantly, to advance the democracy that we aspire to have. Maybe that will be my initial comment. We'll deal with it as we go.
All right. So Abraham, So you talked about jurisdiction. What really is the point you made about jurisdiction? There were 8 grounds that the Speaker's lawyer canvassed before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court took time to deal with all of them. On the ground of jurisdiction, what's your issue with the Supreme Court decision?
It's not a law on itself. The Supreme Court is also bound by this Constitution.
Sure.
So, if the Constitution does not provide for something or restricts the Supreme Court from doing something, the Supreme Court cannot overlook it. And so, the Article 2, the foundation or the basis upon which Antonio Markin went to court, and also the Chief Justice pointed out that he came under Article 2, so he mustn't be the one to suffer. You remember all those arguments? It's very clear, and I read it. The second one, any act or omission. So if the framers of the Constitution did not contemplate it and did not put it there, the Supreme Court cannot be the one putting it there. Because what has happened is going to be like tomorrow, I can also get up, file a suit against somebody who is walking on the street and saying that, I'll come to Amalbe's house and pluck his mango. Then I just file a suit. There's nothing like preemptive suit. And there's nothing like what he's talking about. You understand? So I am saying that the Supreme Court erred. I can see the agency that the Chief Justice was talking about, but that's not her business. Also, she voiced out what was prejudicing her for the speedy hearing and trials. But that's not her business. If two political parties in Parliament are fighting, it's not the business of the judicial to interfere. In fact, in the US, when there was an attempt to shut down government business in Parliament because they were not going to clear the votes, the budget, it didn't take their Supreme Court to interfere. But parliamentarians themselves.
Was there an application to the Supreme Court? In this case, there is an application to the Supreme Court.
And I have laid, I'm progressing in my argument. I said that application was even flawed. I told you. That application is flawed because the foundation is weak. What I would have expected, if you want me to go back, what I would have expected is for the Supreme Court to dismiss them and ask them to now refile because now the Speaker has conducted himself in a way that you don't want. So my concern is about how the Supreme Court jettisoned the Constitution and went up. I can tell you, and I'm very sure, if that writ is a no-brainer, if that writ was filed by an NDC lawyer, that writ would have been dismissed, and that lawyer would have been ridiculed in court.
Oh, don't say that.
How do you know that?
Don't say that.
So,
please,
for me,
how do you know
because it's a wrong procedure.
And so, but because the person
it's a wrong procedure. No, it's a wrong procedure.
You are alleging that because the plaintiff is MPP, it was entertained.
I have said that. That's my point. You are saying what you are saying. I didn't say that. So for me,
don't pasteurize the Supreme Court. Don't do that.
It is wrong for this writ to have been allowed to be the foundation for the action taken by Afenyo Market and the Supreme Court ruling on that. The next point is that look at the application for recusal.
So let me deal with this. So I want us to take the grounds one after the other. So Honorable Aban,
yes, sir.
He's made a point, a constitutional point really. Article 2(1)(b). So the person who alleges that an act or omission of any person is inconsistent with or in contravention of the provision of this Constitution may bring an action to the Supreme Court for a declaration to that effect. The point he's making is that the act at the time the application was filed hadn't occurred. So at best, it could be preemptive, and in his view, that was improper. So the Supreme Court ought to have dismissed it and maybe now ask them to go and refile because the act, had now occurred.
Okay. Let me take that again. He said that a person who alleges that an enactment or anything contained in or done under the authority of that or any other enactment, or, this is what is important, any act or omission of any person is inconsistent with or is in contravention of a provision of this Constitution may bring an action in the Supreme Court for a declaration to that effect. I agree in saying that the omission complained of or the act complained of should have crystallized before you would then go and say that the person did this or the person should have done this, but he omitted to do it, okay? And his failure to do this is inconsistent with a provision in the Constitution. Or he, having done this, he has done something which is contrary to the Constitution. Good. I do not know, because I have already stated that it appears the Speaker even himself played into that whole thing. When he said he had filed an application, I have not seen what Afrobarometer himself filed. Okay? But I do not know. Most probably, they knew of the Speaker's decision. He was just going to render that decision.
But until the decision is rendered, do we say it's been rendered?
No, until the decision is rendered, it's not rendered. I agree with you on that. Right? So that's why I'm saying that I do not know exactly what he stated. But of course, we have what we call, let me look for something. Because he is going to do something that you know about. Okay? It will have some effect. So I do not know whether we will call this
preemptive?
Mariva injunction.
Mariva injunction.
Is that Mariva?
Or Anton Pillar.
Or Anton Pillar.
I think that's Anton Pillar.
Anton Pillar. Yeah. That's when the thing itself hasn't happened. But you know it's going to happen. So you say that, look, I have a right. We have a right as a political party to have this. What we know the Speaker is going to do is this. Prevent him from doing it. Right? Good. So we are all looking at this, and probably in the circumstance of the matter, was the Supreme Court's jurisdiction properly invoked? I do not want to run ahead of the Supreme Court because in the ruling of the Speaker, of the Chief Justice, she said that in the final ruling that they will come out with, they will even discuss that preliminary point, whether indeed their jurisdiction was properly invoked. I think we should just leave it there and see what they come out with. Right? That would be very fair.
Okay. Franklin Kujo is on the line. Franklin, good morning. Welcome to the program. Your preliminary thoughts on what we saw on Thursday in respect of the Supreme Court's decision, or was it on Wednesday, I think, in terms of the Supreme Court's decision on the Speaker's application.
Good morning to Lawyer Avan and Amaliba. Well, and yourself, by the way. Look, for me, I mean, as I said, I was watching should I say, a very grand movie, a nice movie. I was just waiting for that part of the Chief Justice's ruling. Well, should I call it a ruling? Or I don't even know whether it's a ruling or
it's a ruling.
Basically suggesting that some people had been disenfranchised, and because the actions of the Speaker and anybody who supports the Speaker was going to endanger, in fact, actually lead to disenfranchisement of these persons, thousands of constituents she mentions, then definitely something must be done. And I totally agree with her. I doffed out my hat for her and then the judiciary. But I couldn't help realize the doublespeak and the hypocrisy basically thrown at us. When I say us, I'm talking about South. The people of South that were dispatched, discarded, disappointed, and abused for 4 good years as we speak, right from the Supreme Court, from day one. Now these guys threw us out and said, go away. Just Google, you see, the Supreme Court dismisses South people. Go. Just Google, you see it. when we came, we knew that we'd actually be, in fact, whatever you're calling it, one ton, whatever you're calling it, that you knew that something is likely to happen. So something is likely to happen. So you are trying to affect that. This one here, by Philip Kadochi, we were giving raw deal by the Electoral Commission, a stinking letter written at the dawn of election, and then that was all. By that fiat, we were disenfranchised. This Supreme Court was not in a hurry to ensure that the flagrant abuse, disrespect for the Constitution, all these persons who come from South were not, they didn't even consider it at all. In fact, Chikata was essentially insulted, including the Attorney General, making mockery of the whole process. It's as if we did not even matter. So I'm not surprised that they are conjoined in thoughts and in actions, that they could have the nerve to actually say that some people were being disenfranchised after their MPs who had been pampered. You know, these guys have been pampered so much that they lose an election and they decide that, what kind of nonsense really is that? That you go for an election in a party internal matter, it's not as if ballots were stolen or whatever it is. I want to address that matter before I go. And then you lose an election, some of them even came fit, all of a sudden, and you are no longer part of the party. What is this nonsense? And I think the NPP should be interested in that matter and deal with it. The NPP is no longer the party we all knew, we recognized during the days of Darocha, and even as late as Kufuor's time. It's so much indiscipline. Anyway, let me digress. So these guys have served their term almost to how many more days? Just about a few days to the elections, right? And their constituents have been well served. They've been giving water, they've been giving electricity. Look, I was asking ourselves, so you guys have done this to us. Just give us, so correct the road, 5-kilometer road. All my friends that I thought were in cahoots together, zero, they all went blind. And these guys had the nerve to come and tell me together, Aveno is my own friend, but I told him that, Charlie, you guys did not serve as well. So you hurriedly go and procure a very cheap process, and I call it cheap because it was given for cheap. When we were struggling, we were stranded, we were subsumed, we were discarded by the EC, the local government minister, the government itself, and the Supreme Court. They just discarded us like flies, right? So when I heard that part of the ruling that said, oh, you know, these people, I said, yes, this is exactly what the law says. 4 years, they've eaten. We've not even eaten. Meanwhile, we pay taxes, we do everything. Then when I heard those words, I said, what? Is this a gangster system? That what kind of system is this? I call it judicial terrorism, aided by legal plunder. As I was asking myself, what is going on here? What is going on? The parliament did not sit for a few days because some people's rights were abused. And when we came, my brother, just Google it and let your listeners see it. Google the headline: Supreme Court SAP discarded, dismissed. Just like flies. So that was my umbrage. I took umbrage. I said, what is this? What is this world coming to really? That I sat and be listening to this crazy stuff. So that was my problem. And I see when you do that, then the other matters tend to come into focus, and then people say you are biased. Because then the NDC, I don't think sorry is a stupid lawyer. I did law as part of land economy. I didn't really do law as a law standalone. But I'm not stupid to realize that some of the things Sorry was saying were just barefaced common sense. Well, of course, the law says whatever. But you could discard the person and how am I supposed to trust you and believe that you have actually used the law to rule? When you are just looking at my face, I came to you. Chief Justice, she was part of those people who discarded us like flies. Sir, munko. Their facial expressions was as if we are at war. Hey, now you are 2 elections, I say, FC Crawford, they were discarded. That didn't matter to them. Up to now, do you know what happened? When they discarded us to the High Court, the High Court spent 3.5 years, my brother, 3 good years. We were going back and forth. The Achikata was my lawyer. Every now we go, we file processes. At the end of the route, Khalid, this world, the life, balance. The judge said he has no jurisdiction to deal with the case. Can you imagine? So when I hear that processes were not abused in the process of securing this so-called ex parte, then I ask myself, wasn't the process really abused? When we were told to go to the High Court, because that's the way it should start, and the High Court now turns around and says that this is it. We have no jurisdiction. As you speak, we are actually filing an appeal to the Supreme Court. And I'm asking Chikata, what's the point? These guys will rule against us anyway. So let's just forget it, And he says, no, we need to fight. There's a gangster system. We need to deal with it. I said, yeah, I understand all of that. But look, maybe you don't see, you see what we are doing to ourselves. We are even asking ourselves whether we are sane, whether we are normal. I'm asking, and this guy is doing this thing for pro bono, right? Now, Chikata is doing all of this for pro bono, and Jimanu, I remember the name, from this month's law of fame. And they are doing all of this pro bono. And I'm asking myself, what is this? What type of system is this? So those are my remarks. I don't trust them. I don't believe them. And I don't respect exactly what they were telling people in the country, really. Because for me, I'm a living example. We are living examples of this, what I call the gangster terrorism type of thinking. I mean, it's precocious terrorism, legal plunder, and indeed, quite frankly, annoying and undemocratic. Thank you.
I see. That's Franklin Kuju. Very strong words there. Obviously, because I mean, he's been on the short end, or he's been at the receiving end in another matter that he was involved in, the SAL case, which dealt with the representation of people in the SAL area. If you recall, in election 2020, the people in SAL didn't vote because of some issues, and they've been pursuing that matter. Last minute, the court told them they do not have jurisdiction on the matter, amongst other things. So he's juxtaposing that, against what the court has said in respect of the representation of the persons in the 4 constituencies of the MPs in question, and he thinks that the Supreme Court hasn't been consistent. That is, of course, there are some nuances to that we may want to come to later, but that's what it is. So let's return to the decision now. The issue about natural justice, Honorable Amaliba, the Speaker arguing that he was not given a hearing, ex parte, etc. The Supreme Court thought otherwise. What do you think about this?
Well, I don't know what the Supreme Court said at that point, but I could hear the Chief Justice talk about exceptional circumstances that might have warranted the grant of the application, and went to the extent of saying that even though the application was ex parte, what he gave them, that in terms of the order, was interlocutory. You notice that? And I thought that if a party does not ask for a relief, you have no business giving the party that relief. But I noticed that all that was preoccupying the mind of the Chief Justice or the court was trying to go beyond the parties and look at something that was happening in court, which is the Parliament, and trying to think that the Supreme Court has a duty to fix what is happening in Parliament. And so that was preoccupying the mind of the Chief Justice, and she voiced it out. She even voiced out that, how can we be in a country and Parliament is not sitting? So you can see that the decisions, the rulings that she gave or the court gave was in consonance with her thinking. People came for 10 days. No, 10 days is not enough. Let me do it interlocutory so that we can fix what is happening in Parliament. And so when you do that, as she did, then people begin to be questioning what you are doing. The Supreme Court assumes the power of I can do what I want, or I can do what I feel is needed to be done. But you go for ex parte, you are given an interlocutory decision. So I agree with Thaddeus when he said that, look, this was a matter, because there was an intervening Monday. Parliament was not sitting. This was a matter you could have asked that it comes on notice so that the speaker could also be, in court on that day. So
I think just to provide some meat to that, let me read portions of it. It talked about the Supreme Court allowed the ex parte because of what it called exceptional circumstances that occasioned that. So he said it is a very basic and primary principle of law that an order to stay execution must be made on consideration of exceptional circumstances that can affect the parties, which exceptional circumstances include the wreaking of irreparable harm if an order of stay of execution is not granted. Give some cases. In the ruling of the Supreme Court on the 18th of October, the court was very clear that its orders were being made because of the exceptional circumstances that would flow from the effect of the ruling of the Speaker declaring the forces vacant and a determination not to allow the MPs to remain in Parliament. What are some of the effects that weighed on our minds as exceptional circumstances that were alluded to in the ruling? So that's why they made a case about the 4 constituencies spread around for 4 or so regions: Ashanti, Eastern, Central, Western, and talked about the fact that, by declaring that their duly elected representatives as the people in Parliament had vacated their seats for acts that were interpreted within the light of 97(1)(g) by the Speaker was actually enforcing this interpretation against the hundreds of thousands of Ghanaians and not just the 4 people that sit in Parliament. In their view, that was an exceptional circumstance. So he was also doing so at a time that from the official records of Parliament, the official record presented by Parliament to the Supreme Court, the Speaker knew that a contrary interpretation, contrary to the interpretation he was seeking to enforce, was being placed on the same constitutional provision, and the Supreme Court's jurisdiction had been invoked to provide correct interpretation. So not only was it contrary to the interpretation he was trying to put on it or enforce, the Supreme Court's jurisdiction in respect of interpretation had been invoked, and the Speaker knew because he alluded to it. So the Supreme Court's view is that once he knew, he should have, stayed his hand for the court to put the proper interpretation on it as the Constitution mandates before going ahead to do that. So the court felt that these constituted exceptional circumstances, for which reason it allowed the application to be ex parte, because the effect was immediate and the effect was going to wreak irreparable damage or harm on the persons, not just the 4, but hundreds and thousands of constituents. That's what the Constitution said. That's what the court said. That is why it made it ex parte, and not really a matter of natural justice. I mean,
so would all this overweigh the right to be heard? Because you are talking about MPs being removed from Parliament, and that's an exceptional circumstance.
But we allow ex parte applications. I mean, for a limited period of time.
Limited, yes. Yeah. I've talked about both. I've talked about both. So let's even assume what the Supreme Court is saying is true. My question to them is, does that overweigh the right to be heard in court? Because these people, even if the Speaker's ruling was going to stand, it will just stand for a Friday. And then a Monday you come to court, you would have still told them that, Mr. Speaker, stay your order. And so that intervening Monday, and you see, when we are also talking, sometimes you go to the Supreme Court to file processes, and you don't get a date. It will take you like the next day or 2 to get a date. But Afeni Mbaka was able to speed up the process. He got a date. But you can see that the right to be heard is also critical. And so there was an intervening Monday. And that Monday, the Speaker could have been asked to come to court to deal with the matter. Nonetheless, your ruling would have still been that stay proceedings. So the issue of natural justice, as raised by Tadiosori, was breach. In my view, it was breach. Because the considerations, the things that the Supreme Court is talking, cannot overweigh the right to be heard. I don't think so. Because the MPs, do you know that most of those MPs, 4 of them, they don't even come to Parliament. They've stopped coming to Parliament. So it's not as if you were going to...
We know St. Morrison was in Parliament
on
the day.
Most of them,
The guy in
most of them they don't come to Parliament again. And so it wasn't like there was a need.
Failure to come to Parliament.
No, I'm not saying that.
They don't mean they advocated yourself.
No, they've not advocated themselves. I'm just saying that it wasn't anything that was so urgent. Nobody was dying in Parliament for you to breach the rules of natural justice.
For you to talk about. Did you see the effect of how the minority quickly rushed to that side?
No, but
did you see that one?
No, but you saw that Parliament was adjourned, and the confusion you are talking about was dealt with by Mr. Speaker. I don't see any consideration that will overweigh the right to vote. For instance, the MPs were not going to be deprived of their salary for that day. It's not as if because they were expelled, salary for that day was going to be stopped. So the intervening mandate.
But the ruling and the enforcement of the Speaker's ruling meant that they advocated their seats, and so their emoluments, the Supreme Court also said, their emoluments, etc., were to be stopped.
And I'm saying that we have an intervening mandate, which the Supreme Court could have reversed, which they have reversed. I'm just talking about how do we fix the issue of
service,
the natural justice. All these things cannot overweigh the right to be heard, because they were not going to be deprived of their salary for the month. Once you work beyond 50 on the 15th, you still get your salary. So there wasn't any agency, even with the issue of what did they say? What did they say? Special circumstance. There wasn't any special circumstance at all that warrant the denial of the right to be heard. That's my submission.
I see. You also made a point about, okay, any response to that? I'll go to the issue about the 10 days, or I could put that together as well. Okay. So the grant of orders beyond 10 days, you alluded to that you get what you ask for. The Supreme Court said that you did so, or the Speaker's lawyer or the Speaker, made a point about Order 25, Rule 1.8, etc., of the High Court Civil Procedure Rules, being oblivious of the Article 2.2 and 2.3 and 2.4 of the Constitution. I quote, the Supreme Court shall, for the purposes of a declaration under Clause 1 of this article, make such orders and give such directions as it may consider appropriate for giving effect or enabling effect to be given to the declaration so made. So yes, the order with the subsidiary legislation says that 10 days for ex parte. But the Constitution is saying that the Supreme Court, could do it more or less as it pleases. So that is what they took advantage of. So they said that the Speaker's lawyers urges that because of Order 25, blah, 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 that enjoins High Courts to grant injunctions and other preservation orders for 10 days in the first instance if heard ex parte and without notice to one party summoned before the court. The Supreme Court was also enjoined to grant the ex parte order for 10 days as a matter of rules and practice. Now, separating the High Court from the Supreme Court. Now, so that this is a submission that fails to appreciate the import of Article 2.2 and 3, which guide the Supreme Court when dealing with constitutional matters such as this one. So that is the Supreme Court's reasoning in respect of why it extended the 10 days asked for and made it interlocutory.
And does it say that the Supreme Court can do what it did without recourse to the nature of the application? That when the man comes to you asking for a relief for 10 days because of this one, because of Article 2.2, you can go beyond it. Where has it said that?
No, the Article 2.2 says that they can make such orders.
Yes.
And give such direction as it may consider appropriate for giving effect or enabling effect to be given to the declaration.
And they will not be guided by the nature of the application before them. That's what I'm asking.
You see, my friend
wouldn't they be guided by the nature of the application?
The nature of the application being what? Being ex parte?
Being ex parte?
Not necessarily.
And wouldn't they be guided by the nature of application?
Let me help you.
Let me hear you.
Let me help you. You see, my friend is trying to import into this public law matter things that happen between private persons. For instance, the two of us are fighting over some piece of land, right? I go ex parte because I see that he's making some frantic efforts to quickly put a building on the land to overreach my interests or my rights. So I go ex parte. The court says, okay, or the rule says that we'll give you 10 days. now repeat it on notice to the other party. That has been the normal practice, right? We are dealing with constitutional matters here, okay? And we are dealing with public law here, dealing with public institutions, okay? And the running of democracy itself. Now, Afanyok goes there believing that the Supreme Court may give 10 days, okay, in line with normal practice. The Supreme Court looks at the nature of the application that he's talking about. Because the nature of this application is not about private law. The nature of this application is about public law and the running of democracy itself. The Supreme Court says that, yes, you came asking, believing that we should give you 10 days. But because of the nature of the application you have brought, its likely effect on the practice of our own democracy and the authority that we have under Article 2.2, we are not going to just give you 10 days. We are going to make it interlocutory so that between now and the time we determine the real issue, this will be the order prevailing, right? And I don't see why we should have a problem with it, as though the Supreme Court did not even have any rule to even rely on. Because Article 2.2 says that the Supreme Court shall, for the purpose of declaration under Clause 1 of this article, make such orders and give such directions as it may consider appropriate. So if in the mind of the Supreme Court, it will be appropriate that we do not truncate the effect of our orders after 10 days, but that it should last until the final determination of the real issue before us, so be it. So we give that order, so that effect will be given to that order, and it would not become brutal fulmen just after 10 days. And I don't see why we should have a problem with this. Right? Because that in itself did not mean that the Speaker could not come and say that, look, vacate your orders. After all, the Speaker came asking that the Supreme Court should vacate his orders. How did the Supreme Court deal with it? They heard him. If after hearing him, they found his counter-argument for the vacation of the Supreme Court's order to be of some merit, they could have said that, yes, we said it should be interlocutory. But now that we have heard you, we could vacate that order completely. And of course, the chaos would have continued. Or we would let that order still stay and then determine the real issue being the interpretation of Article 97, Clause 1, G and H. Is that not all that we are dealing with?
I see. So I think the point generally was that nothing between the Friday and the Monday, nothing really stopped, nothing really could have happened. The rush, I mean, the ex parte, the rush, and so the extension, the 10 days, we kind of understand. What it's difficult for people to understand is how the ex parte was entertained, etc., etc. That created some semblance of the fact that, I mean, things were rushed. But this is the big issue on 97.3 City FM.
Maybe I should even react to the impression that he's creating out there that when you go ordinarily, it is difficult for you to even get a date. But some way, somehow, somebody was able to
recently, the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, when you file, they don't give you a date.
Yes, I know.
They tell you date to be fixed.
I know.
And sometimes it takes weeks.
I know, but I'm saying that the nature of this application itself.
When that it should be filed at 12:40. And by 2 o'clock.
Was Parliament burning?
Parliament was not burning. Okay? But, you see, that's what I'm saying that.
Between their ruling and now, what has happened?
Between their ruling and now.
But Parliament is not sitting.
What? Nothing.
It is because.
It's not as if
the constitutional crisis.
It's not
as if your ruling would have fixed something immediately.
No, it is because of the constitutional crisis.
The rights of the people.
If the Speaker has not asked the people to go.
The rights of the people in those constituencies would have been.
That's one area that you shouldn't go again. This Supreme Court has refused to recognize the rights of people in some constituencies. I did a case Asinov.
Asinov, yes.
Asinov. We canvassed that in Cape Coast High Court. They refused. But during that period, a similar case at Tichima South. The judge there used this same principle, the right to be represented, and got their MP for Tichima South, Kosa, to stay. So the inconsistencies is becoming a problem. The inconsistency. And that is what Frank Recusal is talking about. The inconsistency.
So this is
what
a big issue.
we have been
We're
talking
looking
about.
at the decision of the Supreme Court this week. The application by the Speaker's law, the Speaker to get the Supreme Court to vacate its own ruling, but that was dismissed. That's what we're looking at it from the various aspects: jurisdiction, the fact of ex parte, the 10 days becoming interlocutory, and a whole lot of things. And my guests are helping us appreciate the issues. This is the big issue. Don't go away.
Complete this rhyme. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
How are you working? How?
Who's that?
Welcome to The Point of View.
Welcome to Face to Face on Channel 1 Television.
And hello, welcome to What the Papers Are Saying.
This be football made in Ghana. It be the only pidgin show where it day on your screen. Channel 1 TV.
Thank you so much.
Some people are late. They have to catch up. City TV is now Channel 1 TV. You understand?
This is Channel 1 TV, telling your story, empowering change.
Complete this rhyme. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
How are you working? How?
Who's that?
Welcome to The Point of View.
Welcome to Face to Face on Channel 1 Television.
And hello, welcome to What the Papers Are Saying.
This be football made in Ghana. It be the only pidgin show where it day on your screen. Channel 1 TV.
Thank you so much.
Some people are late. They have to catch up. City TV is now Channel 1 TV. You understand?
This is Channel 1 TV, telling your story, empowering change.
one would argue on a certain basis and say that because of this, the Supreme Court is not performing to his expectation. Another person would say it is about the inconsistencies. And you notice that when you call Franklin Kujo, he just zoomed into the SAL matter and trying to compare it with this matter. So at this moment, the Supreme Court is there for everybody to look at and the way they conduct themselves. I, on any day, will be on the side of a ruling that will say that because of the people's representation, let's not injunct the MP. On any day.
This is what has happened.
And I'm saying that I cannot accept this one because in previous cases, the same Supreme Court said that the ban must be injuncted because each day he is in Parliament, he's breaching this constitution. How come that on this occasion, each day he's in Parliament, he's not breaching this constitution?
Can I answer him?
Okay.
You let me answer.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
You see, he's comparing apples and oranges.
But that will be it. That will be it. That's what you say.
In the first case, we are saying that, I think you are talking about the education case. They're saying that his own eligibility was a matter before the court. Here, it's not about their eligibility. No. Okay, this one, we are talking about 4 MPs who are eligible, who qualify, who have been voted and they are in Parliament, right? And the Speaker, by his own kind of interpretation and some kind of enforcement, gives a fiat which immediately takes off these 4 people from Parliament. Okay?
So you have made your point. Now let me take my time. You've made your point. You want to juxtapose the two.
No, but it's not
I thought you wanted to juxtapose the two. So he has done it. He's done the juxtaposition. Now let me go on.
But it was his time.
That was my time. Yes.
So let's know that.
You have done the juxtaposition. In my view, I say no for illegibility. The 4-2 is illegibility haven't decided to file to represent the people where they are on a different ticket. It's also about eligibility.
No, but here we are talking about constitutional interpretation because it is the Speaker's interpretation which had led to that decision to oust these 4.
And the other one was the court.
No.
So that's what for me, both about eligibility.
No.
But I'm saying that.
You see,
I'm saying that.
Mr. Parliament, the point really is that in the case we are looking at the 4 MPs, it's the Speaker that made a pronouncement pursuant to a constitutional provision. The interpretation being enforced has suffered a rival interpretation. And the law is that if there's a rival interpretation, you go to the Supreme Court. And the plaintiff had gone to the Supreme Court before the declaration was made.
Look, you are sending me to another area. The Speaker can interpret the Constitution. In fact, you, in your studio here, when your board of directors call you, you can interpret the Constitution.
Sure. But when there's a rival...
Now, let me come. Are these provisions not clear?
And unambiguous?
Yeah,
that's
no, wait, I'm coming. So it is when they talk about rival interpretation, it is not when you assume a convoluted interpretation that makes it an interpretative issue. I'm coming. Next is that having interpreted the Constitution or having made its ruling, the Supreme Court, I've even lost my train of thought.
So having interpreted the Constitution,
So my point is simply that these provisions of Article 97 G and H are very clear and are not convoluted at all.
To the extent of your understanding.
It is your understanding.
To the extent of your understanding. But if I understand it differently...
This provision has a history. Do you know that?
No. If I understand it differently...
Do you know that?
You can't interpret it anyhow.
No, but do you know that...
But who makes that determination? Who makes that determination?
So...
You and I don't have what it takes. We are not clothed with the authority
to do that.
To
Read Article 125.
To interpret it in the face of varied interpretations.
Yes.
So the Supreme Court does that.
Yes. So
and that is its job.
So the Supreme Court...
And the Supreme Court says, allow me to do it.
Yes, and then what are you positioning to it?
The rival meaning is that this does not apply to this parliament. It applies to the next parliament.
I know about their argument, which does not make sense. Then this provision wouldn't have existed at all.
So let's go into it.
So the Supreme Court will tell us what you are saying.
No, but you are juxtaposing it with a certain...
As enough
and saying that, look, no two cases are all on force.
Thank you.
So you cannot have that. But the incidences... The incidences may be similar. I'm not even saying the same. A cat can bite somebody. You go to court. A dog can also bite somebody. But the issue is there's a bite. So I am saying that there is an issue about eligibility in both cases.
It's not true.
One is he's not a Ghanaian. He's eligible to be in parliament. One is he has crossed carpet and can he continue to be in parliament? Now the matter must go to the Supreme Court. When it goes to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court sees one and injuncts it, which is about eligibility, and the second one, the Supreme Court does not injunct it, then there's inconsistency.
You know what? I think we should draw the lines well.
Okay, let me hear you.
Please, as far as Article 97, 1G and H is concerned, we must not just think that that provision was there for nothing. It was to cure a certain mischief that happened in the past. So it has a history.
We know about all those things.
Good. So if you know
not
that
to do
history,
one-party state, to ensure that we don't have a one-party state. That's one of the reasons.
Take your time. Take your time. Take your time. You see,
but it doesn't mean that it's not about eligibility to continue to be in parliament.
Take your time. You know, at that time, all these people had also been voted into office, right? There were reasons why some people felt that they wanted to cross carpets to insulate themselves from certain things that were happening. I don't want to go into details, right? So they did. Subsequent constitutions felt that that act should not be encouraged, right? And so in the life of a parliament, and there's nobody should think that every parliament is the same. That's why they have a name. There's something for it. That's why. So I was a member of the 7th Parliament, right? In the 8th Parliament, the people have not said they are leaving. The thing is that, of course, we can look at it in its political sense. Immediately, it shows some kind of disloyalty to their party. We cannot run away from that, okay? But the law contemplates that one, that when you signal your intention of contesting an election under a different gap in the election yet to be done and in the parliament yet to be born, should that declaration of intention make you lose your position here and now in this parliament?
Yeah, but is that not a contemplation? If not, then this provision shouldn't exist. If it's for the next parliament, then this provision shouldn't exist.
Good.
Because the next parliament, they would have come on their new platform.
Good. So,
and they wouldn't have vacated.
So we are talking about the life of the 8th Parliament.
The 8th Parliament, yes.
Good. So suppose that in the life of the 8th Parliament, these ladies and gentlemen decided that they were going to remain in that 8th Parliament under a newly acquired identity.
Which is what they have done.
They have not done that.
So wait, so in the case of Isiama for Formina Independent,
yes,
he filled the EC forms, and I'm sure he filled it as a member of the MPP, and the MPP would have endorsed it or done whatever it would. Indeed, he picked the form from the MPP office to do it. If you are not a member of the party, you can't contest on their ticket.
Good.
So that he's no more an independent. He's a member of the MPP by virtue of he going there to pick a form, by the party endorsing the form, and all of that. So I don't see. I mean, it may be sub judice. So I mean,
anyway, we will leave that for
just so we don't run into trouble,
so that we don't run ourselves into, we don't run ahead of the Supreme Court. Okay, but if you're looking at it against the history and the reasoning for this provision, you will realize that it has no intention or contemplation of a yet to be born parliament. It has to do with the life of that parliament. And that's why I say that the classic example we can give...
Is that not a stretched argument?
I don't think so.
Honorable. That's a very stretched argument.
You see, the most critical example we can give in this is the Abraham Kofi Asante case. Okay? Where in the life of that parliament, he decided that he was quitting NDC.
And even why are you saying?
Good. Okay? But if each parliament should truncate, and there is preparatory time before another election is done, these people would have run their full term before probably saying that, yes, I'm going to contest in the new parliament under this new identity.
Honorable, you see, look at it, not the preamble per se, but look at the introduction. A member of parliament shall vacate his seat in parliament.
Go ahead.
So,
go ahead.
Shall vacate his seat in parliament. I'm reading the H. If he is elected a member of parliament as an independent candidate and joins a political party, how do you join a political party?
You go ahead.
The G says if he leaves the party of which he was a member
and seeks to remain
at the time of his election, so the member, as in the ticket on which he came to parliament, and at the time of his election to parliament, to join another party or seeks to remain in parliament as an independent member.
Yes. So in that parliament,
but
it's a negative.
Once you forfeit your membership, and now you've taken on a new cloak as a member, and you want to remain there, you've left that party.
This whole let's leave it to Supreme Court.
No, this whole caboodle, this whole problem we have is just because the numbers are close in parliament. That is the only reason.
But it is the only reason. But that's the reason why we test the law.
It is the only reason.
But that's how we test the law.
You see, because they feel that their numbers will reduce. That's why they are going. Because when Michael Quay removed one of them in a similar circumstances, and the numbers did not matter whether Michael Quay removed or not.
It was politically expedient, so they didn't care.
And I'm saying that NDC then could have somebody could have tested the law at the time.
I'm saying that why we didn't test the law was because
from politics,
in our view, this one didn't need any interpretation.
I see.
But they are causing an interpretative issue when there's no interpretation. Even you sitting there, aren't you taking him through the incongruous?
But I'm not the Supreme Court.
Yes, I know. Yeah, that's what I say.
I'm not the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court may think
otherwise.
Even you.
So I don't think there's any issue here.
All right. So this is a big issue on 97.36.
But you see, in future,
let me do my back announcement. Let me do my back announcement. You can join the discussion via our WhatsApp line 020
MPs will leave
444-7033. Franklin Kujo is still on. Franklin Kujo is a civil society activist. He did some law when he was doing land economy at Tech. And he seems to be doing quite a number of things. He has huge interest in this matter because he's just opposing what is happening here to what happened to his people at SAL when he was part of the process, etc. And it doesn't appear enthused at all. But Franklin, on the other parts of the decision, what do you think? The 10 days, these are purely legal matters. The 10 days, the issue about irreparable damage, etc. Your point about SAL is well made, and we know. What do you make of the other parts? I mean, 10 days, etc. And even in your own view, do you think that the provision we are talking about, is ambiguous, such that it's not clear, and so we have to seek interpretation?
Well, I mean, these are court processes, and I don't pretend to understand the processes per se, because it could be legalistically argued. But again, just opposite it real world situations, and I'm asking myself, well, I mean, if someone comes to court and seeks to be given cassava, and then you decided to add plantain to it, aren't you overfeeding the person? I mean, I thought that's what I came asking for. But now I get it. And Lawyer Alban says it's a constitutional crisis, right? I mean, so because something is likely to happen that would dissuade or prevent the representation of a section of Ghanaians. So it could be it is a crisis. But again, I tend to think that because of the stature of the speaker, and the stature of and the respect for the equal, should I call it the separation of powers. And the Supreme Court should have recognized the fact that the Speaker was equally, important and respected. I think they shouldn't really have entertained the motion ex parte without the Speaker's knowledge. It's as if sneaking on the Speaker, even if they knew what exactly the Speaker intended to do. So I thought that was a bit too much. That's what I felt, especially when they say they're stickler for processes. I did not stickler for processes. Some other lawyers, private lawyers, argue that even the process should have started from the High Court. I found that very interesting because the Supreme Court says, well, we are the mother, we determine what the Constitution really, the spirit of the Constitution. So wherever an action is started, the action could be stayed, and then people, parties can come to the Supreme Court for interpretation. That's understood. But nobody knew what would have happened if the process had started at the High Court. Maybe they wouldn't have even decided to come to the Supreme Court anyway. So to suggest that because of that, and you have that expansive powers to even determine what is likely to happen at the High Court, I thought that was also too far-reaching, even if they were trying to be quite, futuristic. And it was just far-reaching. And I understand that it was a politically contentious matter. Of course, it's a game of numbers, which was this game of numbers that got us kicked out from being represented in the way. If you realize, who shouldn't have won that particular, should I call it a seat? If you hadn't won, I'm not too sure the NPP would have had majority in Parliament. So everything was also designed and orchestrated from the get-go. I'm just trying to argue in reverse that if it is the case that these actions were likely to cause the disenfranchisement of a certain group of people, then I think it is fair, and without necessarily going back on what I said earlier, my first submission, I think the Supreme Court should be seen to be fair. It should be seen to be very, very fair. And it's Becker's belief that they could allow certain processes, and I caught those processes being procured cheaply. Who goes to court at 12 noon and gets an order, and then everybody gets seats at 1 p.m.? Why? Are we at war? Is there a coup d'etat? In fact, even the end of the world, I'm sure there are steps geographically before the world caves in. I don't think that if you are standing on the highest mountain or the lowest point, somewhere far removed from the epicenter of an earthquake, you should run, but I don't think you should start jumping about. We actually get the line of fire. So I think it was a bit too much for me to bear to understand the process. So once again, applying the broad rule, I'll say that if the intended goal was to prevent an act that was to prevent the disenfranchisement of the people, well, here you are the real life situation. Actually, before the real thing started, you acted in a manner that was not, should I say, dignifying of the people, right? And so for you to be crying foul and suggesting that Parliament is not sitting and that we are in a crisis, I thought those were obiter. Don't you say that in court, obiter? I thought that those were not necessary to the case, really. The question really was, do those people who decided that they had lost elections and so they decided to leave the party? Look, your soul had already left the party anyway. That's why they were not even coming to court. Of course, you can say that they've not written to the party or written to Parliament. But if people are not coming to Parliament or they have declared, imagine, people give real life situations and then some people say, you can't use that because it's not a law, it's not an action in court. Imagine you are seeing a lady and you've struggled separately, you've gone to the ends of the world and procured everything she wanted. You are going out on a Monday, and then Friday she tells you that, I have some other boy I want to see before the time comes, so you allow me to go. Would you go ahead with the marriage on Monday? I think these kinds of things really. I suspect real life situations also matter when you're dealing with certain important cases. I don't think judges only rule based purely on law. They also rule based on the circumstances. And I can yield to the Supreme Court when it says that, well, these were extenuating circumstances, exceptional circumstances, because some people's rights are going to be abused. But you see, once they're pointing all the four fingers at lawyer Thaddeus and the Speaker, the middle finger, The other fingers, the four fingers were pointing back right at them. What did you do when Sal came to you? When you do the least you do to your brothers, when you go to heaven, I'm sure the Lord will ask you, are these people not Christians? It makes Christianity really funny, really. I mean, people go and worship Christ every Sunday, preaching Sunday, and come and sit in the court of law and be giving kinds of offensive orders that offend the dignity of people who have been really disrespected, and then act as if some people are more special than others. That's carnage. That's not human. That's indignity.
I see. Interesting. All right. So the decision of the Supreme Court was pronounced by 5 justices, led by the Chief Justice herself, Justice Tucker.
Can I say one thing?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
And in all of this as well, again, there was this supposed a judge that was said to have been a school soldier of a party.
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting to.
If I were the judge, at least for my own family's sake and my own conscience, I wouldn't even sit on the case.
That's what I'm getting to. So let me frame it. So we have Justice Tokonu, Mrs., who is the CJ, who presided. We have Justice Mariam Wusu. We have Justice Asiedu, Justice Gaiwu, who is the gentleman we are about to speak about, and then Justice Darkun Asari, 5 of them. And the Speaker's lawyer had issue with one of them, Justice N.S. Jau, and he was of the view that this gentleman or this Supreme Court judge should recuse himself because he has been an activist. I mean, he has been a parliamentary candidate and a chairman of the NPP at some point in his life, and that it was not proper for him to sit on such a matter that will have party political and governance implication. The Supreme Court thought otherwise. The Supreme Court said that, you know, the matter before the court was a constitutional dispute and not a matter involving political parties. And on that basis also, the matter was dismissed. The other basis for which the Supreme Court dismissed that recusal application was that, you know, you don't just get up and become a Supreme Court judge. You know, you go through a certain process. And when the members of Parliament, pursuant to Article 1284, being the representatives of the people, decide to pass him, it meant that they appreciated his ability to contribute to justice delivery in the country. And for these 2 reasons, the application was dismissed. I started with you, Honorable Malo, because you were the one who wanted to start this discussion. So
and I disagree.
The basis for the application, the Supreme Court said, was unmeritorious because it's a constitutional matter and not a political party matter. And in any case, he had resigned from the party, and so is no more a member of the party.
And are you sure that even though he resigned, his heart has also resigned?
but how do we know that? I mean, he's resigned.
That is the reason.
No, he's resigned, so he's resigned. He has resigned.
He has resigned, but his heart.
His DNA.
Has that also resigned? This document, and the Chief Justice knows this very well than me, this document is both a legal and a political document. This constitution is what we will call it a legal and a political document, and he knows it. So for the Chief Justice to say that because it's a constitutional matter, it is not a political matter, I try not to agree.
It's a partisan.
I try not to agree with him, but I think I disagree with him.
So it's not a matter involving political parties.
Yes, but we all know the outcome of the ruling, which political party will benefit in Parliament. It's either the NDC or the MPP. So the ramifications of the ruling will be benefited by a political party in Parliament. So it's still a political matter. She just tried to find ways to as it were, go around it, but that is not the issue.
But
That's the answer.
How about the point that...
I think that the man himself should have resigned. Can you imagine?
You mean to recuse himself?
No, can you imagine?
You mean not resign, recuse himself?
Can you imagine in future?
No, resign or recuse.
To recuse himself?
Yes.
Can you imagine in future, I, Amaliba, appointed to the Supreme Court, and I'm going to sit on such a matter? Would the MPP?
But are you sure you wouldn't do justice?
No, but how would it is about perception.
Yeah, but wouldn't you do justice?
One will get there.
No, you should be able to say it because
I'm saying is that it's not about, in times like this, it's not about whether you do justice or not. It's just about perception. So how do you get away or move away from that perception issue so that people will not tag you? And that's why I said, if I were him, I would have recused myself. I wouldn't even allow the Chief Justice to make this kind of ruling. Because this ruling, for me, doesn't sit well with what I know the Constitution is. The Constitution is both a legal and a political document. So for you to say this is not a political case.
You said it's not a case involving political parties.
Yeah, it's not a case involving political parties. But he knows, she knows that it is political parties that will benefit from her ruling in Parliament, isn't it? So I disagree with her entirely.
I see. Honorable Aban, I mean...
Let me start with, I will not quote, but it's the off-quoted statement by Justice Hewitt that justice must not
only be done,
but it must be seen to be manifestly done, right? From that point of view, I would agree with Amaliba.
For the first time.
Not for the first time.
No, I mean...
But many times I've... Okay. Now, I'm looking at myself, my own nature, the way I am, and probably put you to a question. Suppose I say that I'm tired of politics, and I'm going to the bench. I hope I will get his vote and the vote of many NDC friends that I know. Right? Because they will look at you and say, oh, is he a fair-minded person? Right? Are you saying that because of that, because I've had some stint with politics and with a certain political party, I cannot use the talent that I have, the knowledge that I have, to serve the country in the capacity of a judge? I'm asking. Probably we are looking at it in terms of career path. So I test politics and I realize, oh, that's not my area. Should I just lose it out just because at one time or the other I was in politics? Even though you may all look at it and say, oh, he's a fine judge. And he can, I mean, he's a fine gentleman, he knows the law, and he is fair-minded, and he can be a judge. That's what I want you to start thinking about. Then I will put it into perspective that it is because of the institutionalized hypocrisy that we have. I'm going to explain why I'm saying that it is institutionalized hypocrisy. Institutionalized in the sense that don't show your political colors openly, but we know where you belong. That's what happens in our politics in Ghana, right? So the judges and people who are supposed to be in those kind of constitutional independent bodies, the pitch comes as they go along, all right, and continue with that hypocrisy. In the US, look, if you are a Democrat, we know you are a Democrat. If you are a Republican, we know you are a Republican. And if, for instance, Biden is going to make any appointment to the Supreme Court, everybody knows that he's going to appoint people who are Democrats or who align with Democrats or who are liberals. In much the same way, if Trump should make appointments, we know he is going to appoint those who are very conservative, right? And that's how he succeeded in even getting Roe v. Wade jettisoned.
Yes.
You understand the point? Good. But it's because of this institutionalized hypocrisy. That is why this should be an issue. But otherwise, if we all had registration where you would indicate, oh, NDC or MPP and all that, probably we would have seen that, oh, these judges, they are aligned this way, these judges, they are aligned that way, right? So, because of that perception, that may be the, but if you get to a point where there is a crisis situation of necessity, are we saying that we will just judge him even when he has not stated anything and say, oh, at a point in time, you were in a certain political party, right? Because, for instance, personally, as I sit here, if I get a chance of getting into the Supreme Court, I'll go. Right? Personally. And I'm being honest here. Right? And so, would I just lose it just because at a point in time I was in politics? would that cloud my thinking every time? And so that's why they're asking, is his heart also, has his heart also resigned and all that? Let us look at the quality of the things that he churns out. Look, and I'm speaking here publicly, I am very, very, very impressed with Justice Poama, for instance. If you have been reading his
in his case, is it not because he is from the PNC? The PNC, like, there's no really...
Is it also not a political party?
It is, but...
Suppose his political party, okay, has succeeded in galvanizing people, and it has become a dominant force in politics. Would he suffer?
So that's when the issue will come. So now, because there's no issue with the PNC, so you're able to see his judgment for what it is. No, you see it purely with the legal.
The point is that he had been in politics anyway.
He was general secretary.
Yes, that's what you're looking at. So is his heart with PNC? That's why he's saying that...
PNC is not in contention.
Yes.
So even if his heart was there and the matter is NDC MPP, he won't. The PNC doesn't come in.
No, but
so
see,
he will put the PNC down and look at it.
If we stretch the argument, it will then lead to who even appointed who. Right?
Yes.
And that's where I don't want us to go. Because if you see it that way, then we say, oh, because these people were appointed by Nakufado, their MPP, because these people were appointed by Dramani Mahama or Atamels, their NDC. Please, if we do that, we will keep eroding the confidence of the people in the judiciary, because that is the only one standing to create the balance. Otherwise, if we lose that one too, we will create a banana republic if we don't take it.
I see.
Where people will say that, oh, I have no confidence in the judiciary, so let me just take the law into my own hands. And sometimes my friends in the NDC, they should take their time, or they should be measured in the way they bastardize the Supreme Court or the judiciary. It's the same judiciary that dealt with the attack.
We critique them, we don't bastardize, we critique them.
Oh, your criticism sometimes move beyond what they have stated, but even to personalities.
Have we attacked anybody?
Let's go on.
We've not attacked anybody.
It is the same court that gave the Atuforsen judgment. That's why they have no qualms with it. Right? And a few other cases. And so when it comes, let us take it in our stride. If we don't agree, criticize it well. Okay? Criticize the judgment and not the person who gave the judgment. And make it seem as though it is for some political end. Right? Because the judiciary, that's where you earn your living, that's where I earn my living. We should be measured.
And that's why we should be interested in the right is being done there.
Exactly. Because you see, let me tell you, I'm just going to give you a case that I won just recently, and I was so happy. This is a case that I had lost in the High Court. I had lost at the Court of Appeal. But I was still convinced that no.
You had a case.
I had a case. I went to the Supreme Court, and I had a 5-0 unanimous decision overturning the Court of Appeal decision. Right? Should I go home? The High Court had ruled against me. Should I go home and cry? Right? It's the same judiciary.
But you see,
so please,
perception about people precede them.
Yes, you know, you
that's
talk
why
about
perception about
that's why I started with the Charles Hewitt.
So that's why
I'm sure when I was being invited here by a producer, he had a certain perception of me before I even came here.
But because
so
in your case,
will I get your vote if I want to go to Supreme Court?
So I'm not coming there. so if a person is related to a certain political party, definitely, if you are a litigant going to that court and you are a political party, your perception about him will precede whatever he's doing.
But can't we resign? You are active. He is no more active. He's not an active member. He's resigned. Yes. So can't we resign?
But we resign and our hearts still remain where we were.
Not necessarily.
It's not necessary. But how do we know that? We can only know that from your own work. So for instance...
And his work so far has shown that...
No, we can't tell that. We can't tell.
So that's the basis.
So for instance, the work of Poama has made him convinced. I'm sure when Poama was being appointed, you know how the whole about his appointment. Similar things. But now, he's worked to an extent that his work has shown. So until then, anybody coming before such a judge must be apprehensive. You can't stop it.
I want your vote.
Let me speak to Franklin.
You can't stop it.
Franklin, you started by wondering why Justice Ines Jaiwu was still on the panel. You said you would have done something else.
Well, that's why I quoted this Hewitt's case.
Yeah, so by the extension of that. Okay, so let me hear Franklin. Franklin.
It is not as if my constellation of factors here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
It is not as though my understanding of these matters actually do not or should not be put on the pedestal of, should I say, qualifications. I think well within his rights. I mean, academically he may be qualified, but given the fact that most judges do not really vote based on ideological basis, most of the judges in Ghana really are very strictly conservative. It's ruled by the book and not necessarily by any other. Sometimes they're not even convinced about any other advanced situations outside of the law. So because of that, it is very difficult to say that someone's proclivity towards a political party is actually based on his ideology. I don't think that's what happens in this town, which is why many are at liberty to actually suggest that if you have been a foot soldier of a party before, then clearly speaking, you may still have certain feelings of them, especially when the matter is quite political. I mean, I would have recused myself, really. I mean, by the way, you also wouldn't know what you would have ruled. If he had been the dissenting judge, then many of us would have been ashamed in the way. But that's not how it works. I mean, these guys rule by them. It's like a creep system. That's what I realized about the judiciary. Most of the times it's a creep system. But depending on who I panel, really, then you also get to see and appreciate the deep knowledge that they bring to bear to certain cases. I mean, I look at the panoply of judges on the Supreme Court today, and I was wondering, where did this fall come from? Given that, well, I don't know, I've not read their rulings while they were in the lower courts, as part of the superior courts. But a case of this nature, you don't put lightweights in there. I mean, what was Kulendi? Where was one of those old lawyers that are constitutionally? Yeah, Kulendi could be said to belong to MPP. But, Kulendi, many people would really not bother that much. I don't think Dennis would even have bothered if Kulendi was part of this panel, because people know Kulendi is an erudite thinker and all of that. I mean, I'm sure, I'm saying this based on the circumstances that we know, and we are discussing this matter dispassionately anyway, without any inhibitions. I don't think the judge, if he's listening, should be bothered at all. We are just saying that our judges are not that bold in this part of our world. They are not that, when you review the Supreme Court rulings in the United States, Cato Institute does them. Sometimes I wonder, and I say, wow, people are able to go into the minds of judges and dislodge the argument, which makes the country grow. Irrespective of the fact that in the US, Supreme Court judges are mostly ideologues. Really. That's true. But when it comes, apart from ideological issues and very, very important issues, most of the time they tend to rule properly and they tend to rule well anyway. So for me, if the scholarship of this judge had been the case that, I mean, that's the way I would have analyzed it anyway. Okay, maybe he's made certain landmark rulings that, and in this part of our world, very few of them do make landmark rulings, really. I mean, I'm sure the two lawyers, they will tell you, they rule by the book, and sometimes it makes the whole process a bit. Anyway, that's me. I don't know what others think, but that's the way I see the judges here. So it's fairly easy. It's fair game for people to suggest in a politically charged issue like this to say, oh, gentlemen, you were one time foot soldier as a secretary of a party. Do you really think you give judgment fairly? If you are dissented, then kudos to him. But he didn't dissent. So that's the accusation to start. And we're not going to dissent anyway. I said the character and composition of that Supreme Court 5 was clear and it was predictable. There's going to be unanimous FC.
I see. Unanimous FC. If FC says unanimous FC. All right, that's fine. So, so back to you. If we want to be looking at judges in that light, are we ever going to have anybody to sit on any matter?
We won't.
Oh.
Franklin, saying something? I was directing the question to.
Oh no! All right, let's go ahead.
Okay, to
we won't. We won't, because I am of that view. I remember in the 2012 election petition, when the MPP raised objection against Justice Tugba, I was the one who went on radio to say that if we were going to do that, nobody will be able to sit on that case. Because there are people who are related, who come from the same hometown with Kufuor. There are some who are classmates to some of the judges. So it's not just about political party, but people are related in a certain way. So I agree to that. I agree that if we want to do that, we won't have people sitting. But the whole thing about justice is perception. Do you know that? Why somebody will get up in the morning and say, I'm going to court? He feels that when he goes there, he will get justice. It's about the perception of the person. So it is important for the judicial to also do away and distance themselves from issues that will cloud the minds of people to think that when they come to them, they won't get justice. All our courts and the whole world, courts thrive on transparency. Because if there's no transparency, people will not go to court. And in fact, you know the development of the common law, how the common law became what it is. There were other courts. But people felt that those courts did not give justice, and all started gravitating towards the common law. That's how common law became common law. So you cannot also take away from people's perception, and you can't say that those things should not happen. And when those things happen, what do? You recuse yourself. And that's why I said that the judge had a responsibility to himself first and to the people of this country to have recused himself so that the perception that he will not be fair and cloud the judiciary with that kind of thinking would have been absent as we speak today. But if the judiciary or the appointing authority decides to look at people who are politically exposed to them and appoint them to such institutions, then the people who would also go to that court have a right to be raising such objections. Because I cannot understand why presidents who have the capacity or who have the authority to appoint judges will be appointing such people.
So you are saying that if I should put in an application to go to the bench, I should not accept it?
Knowing Justice, knowing I'm calling Justice Aban, may God bless my mouth. Knowing Alex Aban, for example, if he says he wants to go to the bench, knowing who he is and his views, would you say he wouldn't do justice to the matter?
Let him go. When he goes, he must also be prepared to take that perception about him.
Do I have your vote?
No, you're a nice man, not for you. You're a nice man. So what I'm saying is that when you do that, when you as a president you do that, the one who is being appointed, you must also be prepared to face such issues as are currently being made against Justice Joe. But if I were president, look, there are people who are not politically exposed, but their hearts are with the political parties more than those of us who are politically exposed. You know that.
That is what I call the institutionalized hypocrisy.
You know that. So I can still get those people to go to the bench, but you don't bring people who are so much exposed to the bench. When you do that, then the people to have every right to also be suspicious of that person.
So we should rather entrench the institutionalized hypocrisy, right?
Oh, for me,
that's it.
What is the hypocrisy about appointing people who are not known?
No, but I mean, the point really is that if once the president is the one with the power to appoint, I doubt if any president anywhere will appoint persons who are not aligned to his line of thinking. So the same case you started in the US, etc. Yes. Nobody will do that. And so that is where maybe stretching it too much becomes absurd. And that is why it's also important that the persons who are appointed do not align themselves too much with the person who appointed them, but must align themselves to the people or the law.
It's the law.
You know, that's what it's so. Yes. It has more to do with the persons, maybe rather than.
But what the people don't want, to be honest with you, what the people don't want, and you must know this. What the people don't want is to appoint a person who is so exposed. After that one, the people don't want it. The people know that you will still appoint somebody who is aligned to you, but don't appoint the exposed one. After that one,
so we
people
can
don't like,
appoint those ones who are underground.
But
they may be more serious.
Yes,
but
may
we
even
prefer
be
the
more dangerous.
underground. That's institutionalized.
Yes, that's a hypocrisy. Yes, but I'm just telling you what people don't like. To be underground, what people don't
But
like.
shouldn't we be educating people to get away from there?
Exactly.
Somebody could be wearing party paraphernalia, but may not be a hardcore in heart, in ideology, in philosophy. Than somebody who is not known.
For those ones, I've answered the question. It is your work which will let those people begin to trust you.
I am very
for instance,
my name, for instance.
to be honest with you, when the special prosecutor was being appointed, I know him. I know his relationship with the Attorney General. I know his relationship with Gabi. I didn't believe he could do the work.
But he has impressed you.
But he has impressed me.
So you will say the same thing. If
he has impressed me.
Should the NDC win the next election and he's still doing his work?
Oh yes.
Coming after
no, me, I'm
people.
not the type of person. Politicians must be punished when they do the wrong thing. As for me, I don't say it's NDC or MPP.
I see. So, I mean, let me take your final words on this one. I mean, so where do we go from here? Speaker?
No, what will go from here? Are you giving to him or me?
No, all of you. So let me start from him. Speaker is recalled Parliament, 7th November. What do we do? Where do the people sit? Since sitting has become an issue, where do they sit? Should they sit? How would they sit before Speaker makes his comments?
We want to assuage the fears of people. The political barometer itself is already rising. Okay, we at the higher level, I mean Parliament, should not, entrench that in the minds of people. We should not put fear in their minds. For me, they have sat there in the minority for the past 8 years. We have just the next few days. If they really want to be in majority, they should do their work very well where they are, right? Because if you are majority, you're now going to appoint new second deputy speaker, appoint chairman of the various committees, and all that. At what time are we going to continue with the business of government?
But they can do that in
one day.
That one is one day. They have it ready. Maybe it's ready.
So what I suggest we do, in the interest of the people of Ghana, and not to create tension, let the NDC keep sitting at the left side of Mr. Speaker. Let the MPP keep sitting at the right side of the Speaker. After all, now there is some kind of stay of execution, interlocutory though it is, until the final determination of the case. If the Supreme Court decides along the lines of the thinking of the Speaker, so be it, then we know. Right? That one, if there is actually I don't know how I should call that one.
Cross-carpeting. Transfer. I don't know.
Transition from one side to the other.
To the other.
Okay. If that becomes mutual, then they are actually implementing what it is.
So are you expecting the Speaker to make a comment on the Supreme Court? He surely has to, right?
I think that in order not to inflame any passions, all comments that he has, he must shelve them.
No, because he must pronounce on the happenings, because he made a declaration.
Of course.
And the Supreme Court has, so he has to.
Yes, so he must just say that we are respecting what the Supreme Court has said, okay? Be at your respective places, your previous respective places.
Should that be said before? Because for the guys in the NDC, they say that by the Speaker's notice or declaration on the 17th, it meant that the numbers or the sitting positions...
It has flipped on their side.
So what should they sit before the Speaker says that, before they change? Should they sit where the majority should sit? On the right of the Speaker? Before he makes that decision? That should be told them...
That will be starting the day on a
told,
note of confusion.
That should be told them before they
Nobody should tell them. They should accept that we are in a democracy.
But they say they listen to the Speaker, and the parliamentarians listen to the Speaker.
Yes.
The Speaker told them that 4 seats are vacant.
But Supreme Court has spoken.
But they have not heard. The Speaker, they hear from the Speaker.
You see, if we do this kind of ostrich thing, that's when we will create further problems for our people down there. You understand? It's not as though we have not heard of the happenings and what the Supreme Court has said. You know, one Sunday when they had their their press conference, I heard Atufosun loudly that even though the Supreme Court has spoken, they will not take it. And I felt that shouldn't come from people who are lawmakers. We agree that we make the laws as Parliament. But we agree also that the laws that we make, we don't interpret it. But it is the judiciary that interprets it. And so if we are Democrats properly so-called, and we believe in the tenets of democracy, we still have to abide by what the Supreme Court has said anyway, even though it is unpalatable to us, and we don't agree. So let's accept it, move on. After all, the final decision as to whether the Speaker was right in his interpretation of Article 97(1) G and H has not been pronounced upon. So we all abide that and still continue doing government business. Because you see, in all this, the people who suffer most are the people of Ghana. Because government has introduced a number of things that must be done within this short period before Parliament rises finally, right? But because of this crisis, they are unable to do it. And so that cripples the business of government. But I don't think that should be their motivation or their aim, that, okay, let us do it in such a way that the government is actually hamstrung and they cannot do anything.
I see.
Right, so let us go back, now that they have called Parliament. In fact, at first, I thought that his adjournment sine die of Parliament was to give a cool-off period, sort of. Because after all, if you are not converging this issue of I'm sitting here, you're not sitting here, would not even arise. So that was my thinking. But of course, the flip side of it.
That settled that. I mean,
yes, it settled that. It cooled off.
Yeah.
It was good. But the flip side of it was that Parliament was also not meeting, okay, for the business of government. Now, if there is an airline to be introduced, for instance, you and I know that the number of days that Parliament sits is very, very important. And so if we do not have those numbers of days for the LI to mature, it means then that that whole process would be aborted, and a new Parliament will have to come in 2025, probably with a new minister and all that, who may not even be interested in that. You understand? And so we must not waste money. Whatever business that must be done, we must make sure it has been done. As for this 8th Parliament, I'm sure we have to write a whole book on them, because a lot of dramatic things have happened since the 8th Parliament.
Is it possible that in the near future we'll have a Parliament like this again?
It may be worse.
When it happened,
being worse means
you can even have executive go somewhere, presidential go somewhere.
When it happened, this knife edge, a lot of pundits and governance watchers felt that it could maybe be a good omen for Ghana, where people would think about Ghana first and consider things in that light. Unfortunately, it has not been that way, right? Yes, it has not been that way at all. And
but others will also argue that because of the numbers, government itself hasn't been able to do some things that were unpopular.
Yeah.
Okay, so they look at the public universities bill, for example, which government wanted to do in the last Parliament, couldn't do it, perhaps because of election, etc. I think the plan was to bring it to this Parliament, but it never even showed up because you can't succeed with this in this Parliament. Of course, their counter argument would be that some other controversial things like e-levy, etc., have also passed. So, but maybe it makes government weigh properly what it wants to bring, and that is good for the people.
Ordinarily, it should have been good. Certain things cannot be said on air. That's what I would say.
I see. but I want to take this other view too. Franklin is there. The intervention of the Council of State, the intervention of the Council of State, you think it's a bit late or it came at the right time?
There have been many people who have said that the Council of State is a white elephant, right? I'm beginning to agree with those people, right? Because...
But at least the intervention is caused Babin to at least tell us that Parliament is recalling Parliament on this day.
Yes.
Maybe he had thought about it already. Maybe he was going to do it. But at least the Council of State went there and we heard it.
I mean, in this instance, we have seen their intervention. It's good, better late than never. Okay. So for me, even if Council of State has come in and we have had some kind of cool heads and they are going back, the conduct of the parliamentarians themselves would also tell of Ghana whether we are a serious country or not. Sometimes we go there and the things that our MPs do, it's very dishonorable. So please, they should not go there and trade insults and sometimes even blows.
So if the Council of State was to act earlier, what did they have to do? Because everybody is dealing with the law. So they'll go and tell Supreme Court that, oh, this thing, do it this way, or they'll come and tell Babin, oh, what could they have done really?
The only person they could prevail upon is Babin. Because
is that not unfair to him? Because he's also speaking from the point of the law, and the Supreme Court is also dealing with matters from the point of the law.
Yes. You see, that's why I was even talking about Article 117. And I said that, look, that thing is supposed to be a shield. We should not turn it into a sword.
Maybe you should test that at the Supreme Court.
Okay? It's supposed to be a shield. We should not turn it into a sword. Well, because for me, I may be wrong, but in a true democracy, on what basis would anybody say that even though what you are bringing is to advance democracy itself, is to test something about democracy itself, about these three arms of government and all that, because there's a black and white letter somewhere in the Constitution that don't serve me with any process. It is any process from any court, so I won't accept it.
I see.
You see, that's why I'm saying that in building democracy, we look at the factual situation, the circumstances of the case, and say that, just put yourself in an armchair of the person who was doing the thinking at that time in coming out with a decision. If he knew these set of facts to be existing, would he have written what he did? It is only then that we can improve our democracy. And that's why I went back by saying that, look, in the American Constitution, it's something very small, very, very skeletal. But you see, as they went along, a lot of things were put in by judicial decisions. Unfortunately here, because of many things that have happened, we have put so many things in the Constitution that sometimes they even come to haunt us. And I can assure you that if we did not have Article 117, for instance, something would have happened and maybe judicial pronouncements would have led to that, no, in private situations, don't serve anybody, right? And in a situation like this, because we did not have 117, the Supreme Court would have said that, no, that ruling we gave did not include this one. But let's see how it goes.
Okay. Mr. Maliba, the resumption of Parliament, I don't know, of course, obviously triggered by the majority leader, or now, I don't know what to call it, minority, Afrobarometer MPP leaders petition or notice or whatever we call it. Do you expect that once Parliament comes, they sit to the end, or they come and deal with the business as stated and they go back again?
We have 37 days, or is it less, to elections?
Yes.
You see, this document, the Constitution, there are issues here that you can use legal interventions to deal with. There are issues here that you can use political interventions to deal with. And when you use the wrong remedy, you have problems. You notice that because this was a legal matter, you saw how protracted it has become. Because the Speaker too adjourned Parliament sine die, and that is also within his right. So this matter should have been dealt with from the beginning using the political solution and not the legal solution. And you heard Chairman Sabonso say that, well, he didn't just say the words I'm saying, but he said it to this effect. That if he were the majority leader, Afenyo Market, he would have consulted Speaker and not rushed to court immediately. You get the point. So there are certain things here, and in life, generally, it is not all conflicts that the law or the courts can bring resolution to. I can give you a plethora of examples. The current Boko crisis
even in Ghana.
Let me give you, even the current Boko conflict like this, there's a court ruling on it, but have the people stop fighting? How did we get the bomb crisis solved? Was it the court? It was about Otunfo's eminent chiefs, isn't it? So this is an example to show there's not all conflicts that you use legal means. So let's assume that we are going to continue using the legal means. Parliament, because the minority, or I'll call the minority now, has written to invite Parliament back, isn't it? Now Parliament will recall the majority led by Atufosin. I have even heard, do you know that the notice to recall, I've heard that they fixed some people's signatures and that, there were people who are outside the country and had their signatures. You can say that technology they can sign, but
Honorable Yusuf Sule was here last week.
I'm telling you how the legal means. So if the minority or the Afrobarometer Atufosin and go to Parliament and say that, Mr. Speaker, we want to interrogate
our recall.
That's another issue. I am saying this to let you know that it is not everything that we use a legal means. I'm using it to support my argument. Now, you also know, still on the legal means, that when a judgment is given, there's a 7-day lull. I want to find out, help me. When was the last ruling, the one that they dismissed the application? When was it?
18th. No, the application that was Wednesday.
Wednesday, that is like 30th.
No, Wednesday will not. Wednesday will be.
Yeah, 30th.
Okay.
Well,
let me see. It's October.
Yeah, 30th.
Wednesday. That's 30th. Yes.
30th. So there's a 7-day period. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Tuesday.
That on the 5th.
5th.
Okay. So that one, it is ripe.
Okay, that was 6.
Yeah. So it is ripe. So you can't argue on that line because if not, they could have also argued that. I'm just talking about it. If we are going to use
the speaker's status quo would have remained.
I'm just talking about if we are going to remain on the legal. Everybody will be choosing and picking and being legalistic. I am proposing that this needs a political solution. And I'm happy that the Council of Elders, Council of State, have had contact with the Speaker. And flowing from that, even though we are not told what was discussed, but the details, we were not told the details, but we know that there was a contact with the Speaker because of the impasse. I am calling on both the majority or the minority, whoever is the majority, who is the minority, to move away from the courts and have a political solution to this matter. My call, or let me say to the both political parties and their MPs and their people in Parliament, jettison the actions in court and use your diplomatic political solutions to deal with this matter.
Very well.
This matter can be solved.
Did the Speaker not haste too much?
In what?
In coming to that decision?
The decision was, we knew that the decision was going to come, his decision was going to come on Tuesday.
But he took a long time to even pronounce.
The decision
So
was
what
to
is
come
the haste in this?
So
I am calling for a political solution and not a legal solution.
Very well.
Now, if they don't heed to this, do you know the NDC MPs too can go to Parliament and walk out like these people also walked out?
And then there'll be no quorum.
And there's no quorum, and you can't take the issue. Who loses? So
the state loses.
The state loses. So I am of the view that a political solution is what is required and not a legal solution.
Very well. Franklin, you have the final word on this. Council of State, what the Speaker should do next. Should they sit where they have to? I mean, where would they sit and all of that?
You know, part of me feels so elated because as I subscribe to this saying, I forgot who said it, that when the legislature is sitting, no man's life will be spared, essentially because they'll pass all kinds of laws that will be imposed, all kinds of restrictions, taxes, and all of that. As I realize, some of the decisions that are left to be dealt with in the legislature borders on signing multi-million-dollar contract that obviously I do not really see the head and tail, especially some tax exemptions. And tax exemptions has been one of the things that we've been talking about in this country. It contributes to economic woes. If there's going to be almost $1 billion Ghana cedis tax exemptions, well, I'll be happy the Parliament does not sit and talk to deal with that. But we never really got first in that department war. But anyway, my mischievous issues aside, look, I think that, yes, I admit that the political process should have been activated. And if Apenyo, I was talking to Apenyo and saying, look, why can't you get your opposite number to talk and deal with this matter? He thought there were other, the way things have gone was going to be difficult. But I thought he could have tried a little bit more. Look, the Speaker jealously is guarding his death, just as the Supreme Court is guarding their death. And these things was building up. Don't forget, this was the first issue. Remember the LBGT issue?
Yeah.
So they're already, blood had been let in some other regard. And some people were thinking the Speaker wasn't being respected. And indeed, they wanted to show some mettle. I don't know whether that's what he was trying to do. But I yield to all the suggestions made by Maliba and Alban that, look, this matter should have been politically settled, and it must be politically settled. The other point I want to make quick is that the Supreme Court or the judges, the judiciary in this country, maybe it should be part of our constitutional reform. Why does Kenya get it so right? I'm not saying Kenya has not had issues, but Kenya, you know very well that when their judges rule, who born dog? You don't even have the opportunity to question. You know why? But the processes of appointing judges in Kenya are far better than allowing one-man commando in a constitutional setup to appoint everybody. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is appointed a judge. You know why I'm saying that? Because in Kenya, you actually, the Judicial Council that does what? Shortlist. You write an exam, they shortlist you, and then there's a public, how do you call it, interview, right? After the Judicial Council has finished its work, they submit the names to, I think, Parliament, and Parliament then does its work again, and then they submit to the President. The President would have no say, even if he doesn't like any of the people on the shortlisted. He only needs to give them the opportunity, and that's it. If that process was what we were adopting, I don't think anybody will question why did the President appoint this person. And indeed, in a politically charged atmosphere like the way we have in this part of our world, most of the times, I can understand why President Akufo-Addo appoints a gazillion number of judges. I think he's appointed more judges than I think the largest family even has in Ghana. And I suspect that he's doing that in order to preserve his legacy, preserve the political legacy of his party, which I think, unfortunately, will be a lot if we don't change. And I think we need to change this course. This way of appointing judges is a kick. It is backward. And it only leads to these kinds of circumstances.
I see. Thanks so much, Franklin. A few of your messages that have come through. This one said, per Mr. Maliba's analysis, Speaker of Parliament is in Parliament to do the NDC's bidding. Okay.
That's what the NDP are saying. In fact, Afenyomaka said that.
Okay. Akwe from Latibia says, it is proper for all to understand the Supreme Court of the land has been vested with the power and the wisdom and not only law or constitutional provisions to make judgments to ensure the ongoing concern and the peace of the nation. In this case, everyone's hard trying to make their political interest to so stop and consider Ghana first. So quite a long message from Akwe. Tobu Dobu says, this disparity raises questions about the court's commitment to upholding democratic principles and ensuring equal representation of all citizens. The Constitution of Ghana guarantees the right to fair representation, and it's the court's duty to protect this fundamental right. This one says the inconsistent and seemingly biased approach by the Supreme Court in addressing representation of the people is indeed disheartening and nauseating. It appears that when the MPP is affected, the Supreme Court demonstrates concern, yet when other parties face similar issues, the court is perceived as indifferent and even detrimental. Rudolph Asari Danso from Kumasi says, to me, the Speaker didn't do justice so far as he knew the Supreme Court's power had been invoked before declaring the seat vacant. You should have not made a pronouncement. In the rule of law, we must respect all arms of government. Supreme Court is right. Moses from Ashaman says, for Ghana to move forward, we all have to speak the truth. We all have to speak the truth and stop hiding behind politics to destroy this country. The courts of nowadays are politics that rule them, and it is very bad for us for our democracy. So let's condemn any such issues we come across. Okay. Jones Adoboinla says the decision of the Supreme Court leaves much to be desired. We admit practicing a constitutional democracy. Most often than not, the court's decisions leaves a lingering doubt in our minds. You mentioned Sal and other things. Kwesi in Wager says, if you notice, it's as if almost every Ghanaian already knew the outcome of the Supreme Court. If ordinary citizens can preempt outcomes of cases at the Supreme Court, especially under this government, then it's dangerous. Let's not set bad precedent for ourselves. Because see, the law must be predictable. So maybe that's the other side. I mean, the law must be predictable. But I get what you mean, though. This one from Skelly says, but Selorm, the issues are clearly a political matter. The issue was brought by the leader of a political party in Parliament, fighting tooth and nail to maintain a majority. How more political can this get? And this Justice Jau matter, he said, well, so he said he should have stepped aside as soon as his name was mentioned as a potential conflict of interest situation. He would have been respected more if he had stepped aside than he sitting on the panel and this unfortunate decision hasn't been made, which will be etched in our history forever. Well, that's a view. Prince Henry in Koforidua says the 5 Supreme Court judges could not have accepted Speaker Agbonbabi's plea to set aside their injunction. The state placed on Parliament because they felt that they would become, it was not going to be helpful. Okay, so that's what Prince Henry in Koforidua has said. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll look at the Afrobarometer report and make a few comments on that. Don't go away.
Complete this rhyme. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
How are you working how?
Who's that?
Welcome to The Point of View.
Welcome to Face to Face on Channel 1 Television.
And hello, welcome to What the Papers Are Saying.
This be football made in Ghana. It be the only pidgin show where it day on your screen. Channel 1 TV.
Oh, thank you so much.
Some people are late. You know, they have to catch up. City TV is now Channel 1 TV. You understand?
This is Channel 1 TV, telling your story, empowering change.
Complete this rhyme. Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
How are you working how?
Who's that?
Welcome to The Point of View.
Welcome to Face to Face on Channel 1 Television.
And hello, welcome to What the Papers Are Saying.
This be football made in Ghana. It be the only pidgin show where it day on your screen. Channel 1 TV.
Thank you so much.
Some people are late. You know, they have to catch up. City TV is now Channel 1 TV. You understand?
This is Channel 1 TV, telling your story, empowering change.
Yeah, welcome back. This is a big issue, 97.3 City FM and on City TV and on all our socials. We just look at the matter of the Supreme Court, Speaker of Parliament and all of that. And then we are moving on to our next matter, which is on the Afrobarometer report. Just look at one or two things that the report has said. And my guest to help me do that, Abraham Amaliba, Director, Conflict Resolution of the NDC, still with us. Honorable Alexander Aban, former Member of Parliament for Goma West, former Deputy Minister for Health and Communications. Here, Franklin Kujo, President Money Africa, is here. We'll be joined by Dr. John Osai Kwapon, who's a political scientist with the CDD Ghana. And the Afrobarometer report said a few things which are of interest. It talks about corruption. So who is corrupt in Ghana? Listed a number of institutions. Police tops the list. Office of the President, that's the presidency, came second. Tax officials came third. Members of Parliament, judges and magistrates, Electoral Commission, Metropolitan, Municipal, District Chief Executives, civil servants, assemblymen and women, business executives, traditional leaders, public media journalists, religious leaders, private media journalists, non-governmental organizations. In that order, so we have most of them being corrupt, or all of them being corrupt, and then some of them being corrupt. The police have been on top for a while, and that's what it is. The office of the President is number 2, and a few other things. It also talks about trust in institutions. So the most trusted institution of our country, according to the report, is the military, the Ghana Armed Forces, followed by religious leaders, then NGOs and CSOs. Franklin Kujo should be happy with that. NGOs and CSOs. The Ministry of Health, traditional leaders, the President, the courts, Electoral Commission, the police, opposition political parties, the New Patriotic Party, members of Parliament, DCs, assemblymen or women, in that order. So the most trusted is the military, the least is assemblymen or women, and of course, religious leaders, NGOs and co. Doing quite well in that regard. But a few other things also.
Assemblymen are what?
They are the least trusted. I don't know why, but I'm sure because they don't have a lot of power, etc. But the most trusted is the military, followed by religious leaders, etc. So that is the context of our discussion today. Let me start off with you, Franklin. You are from civil society. Have you seen the report? Are you happy? I mean, not the term happy, but CSOs are quite trusted. What do you make of the report generally? Is it reflective of what you think, in your own view, your own readings, etc., how society views institutions? You may want to unmute, Franklin.
All right, hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
I was just saying that I wouldn't gloat necessarily because CSOs and NGOs have been cited to be one of the top 5 most trusted institutions. It's also reflective of the times we are in, really. I mean, the economy has taken a turn in such a way that there are NGOs that are actually doing a lot of relief work. There are those of us who are in the saddle, harassing politicians, delinquent politicians for a living. And I think we are doing quite well. There's been all kinds of movements, pressure groups that have come up again. So people tend to see these things and they find salvation in some of these entities that seek the welfare of the people. I'm happy because I'm a little happy because the notion that CSOs are example protectors that are doing the bidding of Western entities and all of that. I keep telling people, just look at the character of all the people doing work in the active CSO space, and you realize that their hearts are for Ghana. I've told you several times that I could choose not to do this work and then do something more important as well. But it's such as important that we do these things because we belong to this country. So on that, I think for NGOs everywhere, well, I doff my hat to all the compatriots, those who are in the trenches, who are providing daily care support for people who are unable to feed 3 days a week. You know, NGOs are not just the ones you hear of in Accra and Kumasi and Takoradi, and then we those who make a lot of noise, positive noise, by the way. But there are many actors who are on the ground that I think this particular revelation speaks volumes for, and I doff my hat for my compatriots. I should say though that the rather less depressing aspect of this report is also in keeping with the economy and the times. If we look at the fact that 87% of Ghanaians were saying 2 years ago that the country was headed in an abyss, and now that figure somehow has reduced to about 82%. And I'll tell you why, because a few people in government are doing things right. Yes, and so things are looking a bit up. But 82% is staggering. I mean, if you got negative 82% in an exam, that's straight F. You failed. Boldly. But to put all of this in perspective, so I'm taking it from the top before distilling it to the various entities you mentioned that were either less trusting or less trusted. So if you look at that bulk figure, where people are saying that about 8 out of 10 Ghanaians believe this government has managed the economy very badly, it speaks volumes as well. So it tells you that people are really worried that the tragedy of this country, the economic management of this country, is in toughest. And the fact that the damaging directors have not held and they are not even answering questions about the economy is actually quite annoying and worrying. I've called on the various parties to deal with those matters, but they keep coming up. And if we don't do that, you see, people think election is just a one-day phenomenon, and so people will forget. These are people who have storied their lives based on the economy and the challenges they felt for all these years, and they are going to represent them at the ballot. I don't know which way to go, but if anything goes from the sound of things that are going on, they just need a little bit more expression from the likes of my good friend Dr. Barmia. Yes, it's good to be launching apps. He launched an app recently, a ride-hailing app, right?
Yes.
The day he launched an app to stabilize the city, because you see, the city has gone into its own. It's a frolic of its own, and it's doing all kinds of damage. You know, the other day I was purchasing tickets to go to New York for Trump has won power. 1 week after Trump has won. Only to be told that the ticket I needed to cover over 17 point something to the dollar, and I said, what? This one, it will be tough. But anyway, I think I managed to do that, but with a lot of pain. And this is just me. There are many others who are actually going through the businesses that have been stifled, and I think individuals whose savings have been pickpocketed literally. And I love that has happened. A bit of care and support for these people that things will go right. instead of the bravado and the bragging that goes on that I hear daily. I see it in the adverts, and I feel very disrespected and disappointed because I feel that these people should be answering questions directly that face people. All this will come back to bite you. And let me just make the last point about the other less depressing aspect. By the way, the military, as always, so Ghanaians are actually quite disciplined. If you thought it that they believe that people who are military is very, very disciplined. If it tells you something, that people would have expected the military to have been called in to deal with this galamsey menace, at least if the president had ordered a state of emergency on our rivers. It tells you something. You should do the extrapolation work. The other point I need to make before I yield is that, it is depressing to see 65% of Ghanaians say they don't trust the courts. That's depressing, judiciary. It is depressing to see that only 28% of Ghanaians trust the Electoral Commission. That's depressing. That's not quite right. And I think that we need to change attitudes and change mindsets as we go along. This country can grow in leaps and bounds. The branding is good, but the product is terrible, terrible product there. And I think that we need to ensure that this election, we are dealing with policy issues that matter. And to the credit of Bawumia, by the way, I keep saying, he's coming onto the scene of this political scene, actually change the dynamics of our politics in a way, at least to make it policy-driven. Of course, we went as well as in money, making sure we quantify all of this, which we'll be quantifying next Tuesday, by the way. Put all the manifestos into under the critical microscope, the 3 manifestos, NDC, MPP, and Movement for Change. But they are the only ones who actually seem to be doing quite well on our polls, Imani polls. And on that, I suspect some of the things we'll be seeing as to whose policy seems to be more caring, more predictable, and probably less costly. We'll put it all out there. But these are also matters that the voters are interested in. Thank you.
I see. Great. Amaliba, trust in institutions. What do you make of that? They don't trust. They don't trust. For example, or only 28% of the people trust the presidency or the president. 25% trust the courts. 28% trust the Electoral Commission. These are key institutions, and these numbers should make us sit up.
I think so. The military has always distinguished itself, and that's why some of us get worried when we hear information from the military that there are some incursions, political incursions into the military. So I have always, and by the way, after my first degree, nearly
went to the military.
Went to the military, yes.
Before law snatched.
And I'm sure by now I would have been, my colleagues who wrote the exams are now Brigadier General or Colonel.
Whoa.
Yes.
Colonel Amaliba.
Because I know of
Brigadier General Amaliba.
Yes. So as for the military, it has distinguished itself, and that's why some of us fell in love with the military, And so when there are political incursions into the military, I get worried. I don't think that we should get there. So that's not, this is a no-brainer. We should all know this. The judiciary, and that is why some of us have taken it upon ourselves to critique the judiciary. And when I hear people say that, why you are a lawyer, why are you, I say, but who else can criticize the judiciary if not those of us who are in there? Because the whole issue about judiciary, and I don't want to be sounding repetitive, it's about perception. If the perception of the judiciary...
And you've been at this for a while, yourself, Atuguba, and the late Larry Bimi.
Oh, yes. Yes, I've been on this for long,
And you guys were banned from the
Supreme Court? Yes, but it is because of our love for the profession. And I always get excited when I hear that a judge has been dismissed because of corruption. I get excited. I get really, really excited. If you are my client and you approach me to take money and give to a judge, I'll give back your case to you. I'll give back your case to you.
But you should get the client arrested. Because the client is seeking to bribe a judge.
You are right. But sometimes
Sometimes you condone that.
I don't know. It's not about condoning, but how can I let somebody arrest somebody? No. So, and that's why I can't go to the judiciary.
Okay.
I like on the bench.
Okay.
This feeling for people, you know, I can't. I don't want to be the one to be pronouncing your downfall. I think that God has a way of dealing with you. That's So the judiciary needs to be up and doing and to ensure that some of this, and that's why we have been talking about, look, if your judgment, and I'm not the first person to say this, the national security talked about judgments. If they are going one way, people will begin to think that the administration is, in cahoots with the judiciary. The former Chief Justice said that it is now too predictable about the pronouncement of the judiciary. So one of the responsibilities I think that the current Chief Justice should take is to see how he can improve upon this perception. Yes. Then with the EC is all about President Akufo-Addo's appointments. It's all about his appointment. When Charlotte Osei was there, the perception.
But let me deal with the judiciary a bit. So I'll come to the Electoral Commission. I don't know what you think. People think that if lawyers like yourselves are a bit more critical of the judgments from the courts, not the persons of the judges, and you do it openly, you write, you use the GBA involved, like you do that on every key matter. Next time when the judges sit and they are writing judgments, they will know that if you don't do the writing, the bar will objectively come at them based on the reasoning, not the person, the reasoning. For example, Mr. Tadio Sori is a few times critiqued. For example, he critiqued the raft of practice directions the CJ issued recently. He critiqued it. He critiqued some decision by Yoni Kolendi in some very strong terms. If we see more of these and it's widespread, which should come from lawyers and senior lawyers who have practiced for many years and have respect, you don't think the judges next time will be careful about the pronouncements they make?
And that is what we do. There are those who are good at writing, those who are also good at talking. Both critiquing the work. Nobody has said that, go and attack this judge. Nobody has said that the daughter of this judge must be attacked. Nobody has said that, look at this judge's head. Look, we don't do that. What we do is to strongly critique. What did I do here today? I said, Article 2 does not give the judiciary, the Supreme Court, the capacity to even entertain the suit. And I gave reasons why. And that's a critique. Somebody will write it. I agree. In that case, somebody also said that then you have to be writing in the law journals. That was also another way of doing it. So all this combined is a way by which we can hold the judiciary accountable. But the Bar Association, of which I'm a member, is just a great disappointment. And when you watch Kenya Bar Association, or Kenya, they don't call it Bar Association, Kenya Bar Law Society.
Law Society.
And frankly, Kujo talks about the judiciary there. They are very critical of how their judiciary works. This bar doesn't do that. It just goes to sleep. So some of the things that you are talking about, if the Bar Association were championing them, people like us wouldn't have been talking. And it's for the good of the judiciary that you have voices like us who talk. Then with the EC, and I said that with the EC, it's just about the perception that the EC cannot be trusted. It's just about the appointments. See the number of people who are known MPs.
Is that perception not being fueled by the NDC, which is a major political party? So if NDC is able to let all its members feel that the EC is not to be trusted, that's a huge number of people who would think negative of the EC, and that reflects in this report.
Let's go one step after another. Is it true that the president appoints known MPP people to the EC? The answer is yes. Known. Clearly known. And I've told you, the way people think, you can't control it. So you must be able to control the things you can control, which is what? The nature of the appointments. But the way people think, there's no way anybody can decree it or legislate it. So it is for you, the appointing authority, to then decide that, look, the way I can help these people is not to appoint all or known people to those institutions. Those institutions are like referees, and as referees, no team will approach the football field knowing that the referee is going to be biased or knows the other side. So I am not surprised at some of the findings, because those findings, and I agree with the military, it's just that now it appears politics is also entering into the military.
Very well.
And I think that the military hierarchy itself must begin to distance themselves when politicians want to hijack the place.
Very well. Honorable Aban, trust in institutions waning. Military is quite high. The presidency, the courts, the electoral commission, the police, you know, these are key institutions. Trust in them, not too good. Also, corruption, very high. Police, number one. Office of the president, quite high, and that's a problem. Tax officials, you know, judges and magistrates, MPs, electoral commission. These are worrying signs.
Very, very worrying. In fact, when you read through this, the statement that defines everything is that our society is depraved and corrupt. The whole society is rotten, up to the assemblyman, right? And I'm going to give a few examples. I'm acting for a mining company. They're Italians, doing genuine business, have their own books. They don't have book for the GRA and other books for themselves. No. Because you know me, I have advice, and they are very clean. Some people from tax authorities, when they blah, 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 when they saw everything was correct like that, they said, by you, they created something else and asked that they should pay them 2 million Ghana cedis. Yes.
That they don't have something else.
Yes. I just don't want to go into details. So that's one. Right? We have recruitment process.
But shouldn't you be reporting such people?
Take your time. We have, I'm just giving the examples. So we'll talk about that one too. We have that when people are going to the schools, they are looking for connection men, right? When people are looking for employment, then they'll come, oh, Honorable, if you're able to do this, we are ready to pay. Who is saying that? The ordinary person.
The people.
The people, right? And it's going on. You are looking, you are in one public institution. You want to transfer to some place. Go and pay. Who are those? They are not politicians. Right? Now we come to the politics one. The whole process, from start to finish, is steeped in corruption. And the politicians will come and say, oh, it is transport that we gave them and all that. Look, so long as we leave that ostrich, we would never heal this country. Because when you put yourself up for any political position, like you want to be MP, you have to take your people as though it is some kind of farm, and you must cultivate them every time, so that they also patronize you every time. Right? And that's institutional corruption that nobody's talking about. Because from day one that you start the primaries till you become the flag bearer or whatever it is, you keep paying. And so people who are sitting down there will also say, oh, as for my
it's for sale.
It's for sale. So the whole society has been corrupted. We are so depraved. And so we must do something about it. Right? This judiciary thing that we are talking about, we must not look at the judges. We must look at the people down there who will say, give me this, I'm going to give it to the judge. Who the judge may not even know about it. It is corruption which is leading to all this. Right? So we must start looking at people, especially the political leaders, the quality of what they stand for, and not how much they give. Right? And here I'm speaking loudly, especially even to MPP. You look at it from the 1996 coming to this point. Every new set of MPs that we have, the quality is a shade lower. Because the payouts have become so much. And the political leaders, those MPP, NDC, they are not talking about it. When we start from there, we'll be able to check the rest. We don't. And so any riffraff, excuse my language, but that's what it is. Any riffraff who goes to do some galamsey or anything, he gets money, he goes to the constituency, he buys it, he goes to parliament and he's useless.
It's true.
And we're not talking about it. And when they bring this, thank God, my friend hasn't made politics out of this. Otherwise, they'll say, oh, you see, it is during Akufo-Addo's time, you see the way it has gone. Look, when we start doing that and compare negative notes, we would never make this country any better place.
I see.
Because we have people who are always ready to pay. Look, as at now, because now that we have school placement and all that, you can imagine the envelopes changing hands from at different schools.
They are happening.
Are they politicians? No. They you know what? The chiefs have now found a very nice way of putting it, euphemistic way of putting it. When it is even your turn, you are eligible, right? Eligible. You qualify. In fact, the stool is supposed to come to you. Then they will ask, Akwawe, Osika, Albesha Akunya. Akwawe, Osika, Albesha Akunya. Has the stool said, Akwame Dinana? It's a nice way of saying that the kingmakers are now taking money.
I see.
You go to the regional House of Chiefs, they are going to elect their president, and you have to go to them and give them money. Now money is everything.
I see.
And so long as we do that, we will destroy this country. I'm done.
Thank you so much. Lawyer Alexander Aban, former MP, former minister, citizen of Ghana. Lawyer Abraham Amaliba, Director, Conflict Resolution of the NDC. Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa. Thank you guys so much for making time for us today. Is that no? You're a citizen of Ghana, of course.
You see, they highlighted your NDC credentials.
So I can't be citizen of Ghana.
Thank you so much for doing the listening and the viewing. My name is Selorm Adonoo. Catch you same time next week. Have a good afternoon.